attention. Oh. All right. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Cape Coral City Council. Today is August the 7th, 2024. This meeting now comes to order. Please stand for the invocation and pledge allegiance by Councilmember Shepherd.
Heavenly Father, thank you for continuously blessing the city of Cape Coral. We are thankful. Heavenly Father, we pray today that you help our leaders make the right decisions with the world events that we all witness, and also give strength to the families of the children that have been lost lately. We lost a child last week in an accident. Give that family strength, Lord. Thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Gunter,
Here.
Council Members Carr,
Here.
Cosden,
Here.
Hayden,
Here.
Long,
Here.
Shepherd,
Here.
Steinke,
Here.
Welsh,
Here.
8 present.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk, do we have a council member requesting to appear remotely?
Yes, Your Honor. Council Member Long.
Is there a motion to allow Councilmember Long to appear remotely?
Motion to allow.
Second.
Is there any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden,
Aye.
Long,
Aye.
Shepherd,
Aye.
Steinke,
Aye.
Welsh,
Aye.
Carr,
Aye.
Cosden,
Aye.
Gunter,
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. Item 5 is changes to the agenda. I do have two changes that I have here regarding public input. Item 10B2, which is Resolution 253-24, has been withdrawn at the request of city management and will appear in a later agenda. Also, unfinished business item 9C2, which is proposed Resolution 209-24, city management request to continue and defer the second and final public hearing to August 21st, 2024. Mr. City Manager, I see your light on as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move item ordinance 6424, which is the development agreement between the city of Cape Coral and the Cape Coral Town Center to between 7 and 8.
Okay. And with that, I will entertain a motion with the changes that have been specified.
Motion to approve with the three changes.
Second.
And before we call a vote on that, I just want to mention anyone that was here today to speak regarding to the proposed resolution 209-24. We will not have a public hearing on that item, but if you did come to speak on that particular item, you still have that opportunity during citizens' input. So I just want to make sure that you were aware of that. So with that being said, we have a, Mr. City Manager, you have anything else? Or is that light from before? Okay. With that being said, we have a motion second on the floor for the agenda changes. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden,
Aye.
Long,
Aye.
Shepherd,
Aye.
Steinke,
Aye.
Welsh,
Aye.
Carr,
Aye.
Cosden,
Aye.
Gunter,
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, item 6 is recognitions and achievements, 6A. Today we have the Purple Heart Month recognition. And I'd like to mention to our residents of Cape Coral and everyone who's attending here today and anyone that's watching, today is Purple Heart Day, and we honor the brave servicemen who have been wounded or lost their lives in military service. Today is a time to pay tribute to their sacrifices. Cape Coral is the first Purple Heart city in Southwest Florida, showing our commitment to recognize and support these heroes. This initiative inspires other local cities and counties to join, creating a support network for the Purple Heart recipients. We are fortunate to have some of these courageous servicemen here with us today, and I invite Cape Coral to join me in honoring all of our Purple Heart recipients today. They embody the highest ideals of service, sacrifice, and community spirits. So before we get started, we have some individuals that are with us today. Let's give them a round of applause. I want to say thank you for their courage and dedications are a testament to the strength and resiliency of our nation. Now please rise, and if able to join me in a moment of silence to recognize not only the servicemen that we have here today, but that have paid the ultimate sacrifice and to defend our nation. Let's have a moment of silence for all of our servicemen and women. Thank you, and please be seated. I'd like to introduce a short tribute video that honors our Purple Heart Day and the brave individuals who have earned this distinguished award. Please play the video. If you're here today and you're a Purple Heart recipient, could you please stand? Thank you for being here today to honor our Purple Heart recipients, and let us continue to support and recognize the heroes of our community and across our nation, and never forget that some of the ultimate sacrifices that some men and women have given for our country. I've said this many times, freedom isn't free, and thank you for your service. Okay, we will move on to item 6B, which is Community Recognitions Awards, Military Order of the Purple Heart, Chapter 696. Mr. City Manager.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this recognition. Today, on Purple Heart Day, I am honored to present the city's Community Recognition Award to the Military Order of the Purple Heart, Chapter 696. After Hurricane Ian, Chapter 696 provided crucial assistance to affected residents, helping our community recover. The chapter has also supported JROTC programs across Southwest Florida, offering scholarships to outstanding cadets and helping to foster future leaders. Chapter 696 members visited assisting living communities, bringing joy and companionship to our elderly residents. In April, the chapter donated generously to the Golisano Children's Hospital, supporting the health of our community's children. Their work is a powerful reminder of our community's strength and resilience. On behalf of Cape Coral, we proudly present this award to the Military Order of Purple Heart, Chapter 696. Thank you, Chapter 696, for your dedication and all you do to make Cape Coral and Southwest Florida a better place.
It's odd. Okay, Mayor, we want to thank you and the city of Cape Coral. We'd be afforded the opportunity to be here with all of you, and you guys have been really good to us. So we will always be here for you whenever you need us. I stand here, as I say, with my, most men in life never, or even people in life never get the opportunity to meet their heroes. I served with mine and continue to serve with mine right here, so it's really cool. So I just want to thank you guys so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Okay, at the request of the city manager, we now have ordinance 64-24 that we've moved up in the agenda. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 64-24, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Cape Coral, Florida, approving a development agreement by and between CCTC Fee Owner LLC, CC Community Development District, and City of Cape Coral for a mixed-use project known as Cape Coral Grove, located on approximately 131 acres, located on the north side of Southwest Pine Island Road between Chiquita Boulevard and Burnt Store Road, providing for severability and an effective date.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the first public hearing, I gave an overview of the development agreement. This evening, I have that overview available if anybody would like me to recap it, but I really just want to take this time again to thank the L&L team, David Levinson, and his staff, Jamil, James, Young, Michael, Cindy, for all of their work regarding getting to this point, as well as the help that I obtained through the city attorney's office to bring this development to the city of Cape Coral. We do have one more piece that we had to defer as we were working out some final legal language that was acceptable to both parties. We will bring that. We do believe we've concluded that this afternoon, and so we will be bringing that back to you at the next meeting available. But so tonight's vote is on behalf of the development agreement for the project.
Thank you. I'll now open up the second and final public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 64-24, please come forward.
Joe Kilrain, Mayor and Council, 20-year resident, District 5. I'd like to commend the format for this project in that I think it has a lot of great things, and I think it's a real good example of how we can do things the right way going forward from a development standpoint. Some of the real good things about it include being able for infrastructure to keep pace with development and making sure that the commercial portion is built in a manner which makes sure that residents can't go, another residential piece cannot go forward until that is done. He keeps the developer in the game, and the developer was upfront with this in putting additional infrastructure in. It's right out my back door. If it certainly were going to be a problem issue, I would be aware of it very quickly. I think that it's a great model stepping forward. Again, I would like to understand better the tax incentives that are going to be done as a result of it. But based on what I see right now, it's a model that should be duplicated and replicated throughout the city to make sure the infrastructure keeps pace with development. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak during public input? Seeing none, the second and final public hearing is now closed. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you?
Yes, please.
All right, come on up.
You know I can't come here and not say anything. Okay, I was trying to figure out where to start.
Well, we're only talking about ordinance 64-24.
About J.C. Park.
We haven't got to that yet.
Oh,
We haven't got to citizens' input. This is a public hearing on ordinance 64-24, which is a development agreement.
well, now I know why no one else got up.
Yes.
Okay, I'll get that.
Just hang tight, we'll be there in a second.
Don't worry, I'm not going nowhere.
I knew you weren't. So anyone else wishing to speak on ordinance 64-24? Okay, the public hearing, the second and final public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion regarding ordinance 64-24?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden.
Aye.
Long.
Aye.
Shepherd.
Aye.
Steinke.
Aye.
Welsh.
Aye.
Carr.
Aye.
Cosden.
Aye.
Gunter.
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, item 7 is approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion regarding the minutes of the regular meeting on July 17th, 2024?
Motion to approve. Second.
Is there any council discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Do we have a motion regarding the minutes of the regular meeting of July 24th, 2024?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any council discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 8 is citizens' input time. A maximum of 60 minutes is set on the input of citizens on matters concerning city government, 3 minutes per individual. Please remember to state your name for the record. Please remember to address us as a collective council and not an individual, and we'll be utilizing the podium to my left, your right.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Shadrack, a permanent resident and past member of the defunct Budget Review Committee. I received my assessment notice this week, as I assume all property owners did as well. When we get our trim notices, the county provides us with what we paid last year, the impact of the rollback rate, millage rate, and the impact of the proposed millage rate. This is all on one sheet of paper, so we can easily compare. Why can't you provide the comparison on the assessment notice to what we were charged last year? You have the data. Residents must go search their files or go online and do the math. Well, I did that, and my assessment went up roughly 12%, or $109. My assessments are now close to $1,000 a year. These assessments are the most detrimental cost to long-term residents. They are not protected by Save Our Home or homestead statutes. The council should take a long look at these assessments and try to reduce them. This is especially true for the solid waste assessment, where you are building a $30 million reserve over the next few years. This is completely unnecessary since our cost of trash services are fixed. Any additions to reserves that you think are necessary should be in the general fund. I recommend that you stick with this year's current rate. You will still end up with millions in unneeded reserves in the solid waste fund. Going higher than our current rate is very sinful. Lastly, I listened to your discussion for trying to negotiate a 3-year extension with WastePro. That is crazy. These guys sued us 2 times left the city of Port St. Lucie in a contract dispute, and have the most 311 complaints of any other service. The only improvement we are seeing now is because there's a competition that's required in 2027. That is the best way to get them to improve. It is the threat of going with someone else. It's also crazy that we must pay 5 full-time people to follow them around to make sure they're doing their job. Please stop the madness and get on with the competition. I don't care what type of good deal you might think an extension will get you. Their modus operandi will be to cut services to make up for the bottom line, no matter what deal you cut. Don't you guys learn from the past? Let them earn the right to keep our business with a competition and a better contract. Thank you.
Good afternoon, good evening. So my name is Maria Rojas, and I'm a resident of Cape Coral. I've come here to speak on this topic before, I believe in October of '23, and that topic is the speed limits and the emergency need for traffic calming in the city of Cape Coral. I'm glad that as part of the invocation, the recent death of a young person was mentioned. In the short time that I've been here, this is at least the second death of a young person who is riding either a bicycle or a scooter, roller skates, whatever it might be. Again, on Santa Barbara Boulevard, there's already an outrageous speed limit of 45 miles per hour. Nicholas Parkway, same thing, 45 miles per hour. And not only is the speed limit itself absolutely outrageous for a residential area where people go out to their mailboxes next to the road and cars can just legally take off their arm as they go by at 45 miles per hour, but as everyone who's driven in Cape Coral is aware, that number is not even guidance. I've seen people going 60 miles an hour down Nicholas Parkway. Where are the police? It's great that when you come in over the Cape Coral Bridge, there's the cute little sign with a little joke about don't drive drunk or whatever it might be, not texting and driving. But I know that a study was done the last time I came, I was told. Where's the traffic calming? When are you going to take it as a serious issue? How many kids have to die? Thank you.
I'm Lois Willis, and what I came to ask the council kind of ties into that. I live up in the Mariner Middle School, High School area, and there is no safe way for the children on the west side of Chiquita to get to that school. They will not bus them because of the new proximity rules. When I called the city council, I was told we can't even have a crossing guard because there's not sidewalks on both sides of the road. Please, please, put some sidewalks on these very, very busy streets. Love our children enough to keep them safe. I have a 12-year-old granddaughter. Her mother is a single mother, has to be to work, and she will have to walk on Chiquita with no sidewalks or jaywalk when she gets to the school to cross the street. This is inexcusable in a city our size that can spend millions of dollars on redevelopment, but don't protect our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Mary Ann Sweeney from Wildwood Parkway. One thing I would like to report, you fixed Palm Tree with the flooding, but you sent it up to us on Wildwood, and we hadn't had it for 20 years that I've been living there, but this last storm came all the way up the lawn, and it was quite precarious. So I wish somebody would look into that. Also, I would really say we have Christmas in August. Thank you to the CRA and the people who are on our council here. The golf course project, I have been involved in it since the place went out of business. When every town meeting we had, I was here to support us doing exactly what you're doing. Please make it. It will be the pride of Cape Coral, I'm sure, and I know we are in good hands, and your hands are sometimes tied as far as our assessments and values go. I do appreciate what we get, and I'm still glad to be a citizen here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be there in a second. Good afternoon. My name is Bob Sutter. I live in District 4. Got a little note. I just got 3 points of order here. One is for the first gentleman that spoke. I'm glad that I'm not the only one that realized that our solid waste management is a monopoly. This is the only place I've ever lived in that the citizens don't get to pick who supports and picks up their waste. Usually you'll have 3 or 4 or 5 vendors out there that are bidding for your money and will do the right job. I just ask that we look at that because to me it's a monopoly and we shouldn't have monopolies in our area. I think the citizens deserve the right to choose whoever picks up their waste. On the golf course, I was out there the other day, talked with a few people out there. They're very happy with what the city's doing, taking the golf course. They did have some concerns that they relayed to me, and the number one was safety. Walking around at night on that path that's out there for the golf carts. But they're really concerned about vagrants moving in. They like to see it lit up on the side, so I know you'll get into all that as time gets through it, but really concerned about the safety once we build out there and create a botanical gardens. What's that going to do to their community? So please keep that in mind. And that lends me to, it's going to have increased traffic out there, which means we're going to have to make sure that the police are well, informed and are beefed up, as well as first responders, to make sure that we can take care of that area out there. And then the last piece I want to talk about, and I've mentioned this before, is as I go out and talk to people, they're still hurting from the hurricane, and increasing their taxes is making it extremely hard for them to want to live in Cape Coral. And I think we need to really take a look at that as we spend money going forwards. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
This is citizen input?
Yes, sir.
I didn't realize. Thank you for letting me speak, as usual. I'd like to say I helped get the old golf course. I talked to the people 20 years ago, the CEO that was down there at the course itself, and they said they would do the best for the golf course they could see, and they finally did. But it took 20 years. I feel that the golf course, my contribution was I restarted the petition. The petition for the old golf course was almost dead. They were doing it, so I asked Mary Nielsen, and we went down to the farmer's market in town and got 120 signatures, and they put me in charge of the people to sign other people up. And one time down at the farmer's market, we signed up, one day we signed up over 436 people in one day, and that was pretty good. And I'm so happy. I don't know who negotiated it, but it is a fair price. But I'm here to say I speak for all the animals, and I hear it's going to be a retention area for stormwater, and you can't build on it. And this is what I want to see, because I want to keep the bobcat there, the fox there, the squirrels, the rabbits, and all the other wildlife that's there. I don't want to see it developed into anything, with the exception of where it was built out. I'd like to see either a Boys and Girls Club and a senior citizen area put in, and maybe some indoor pickleball courts and tennis courts. And as I say, I speak for all the wild animals that don't have a chance to speak, and I always sign off that way, and I hope it's kept that way. And I worked on the old golf course. I know every square inch of it, and I know there's a lot of wildlife out there. And you can ask the people in those apartments, they'll tell you they see a lot of different birds. The birds come in there. When they're migrating, you'll have 30, 40 different kinds of birds there when they're migrating up north. And the American kestrel is there in the wintertime, and the kestrels are endangered species, and there is a butterfly that is endangered too, that is on the Miami butterfly. Thank you for your time, and I'm very happy with that.
Thank you.
I'm Lori Lehman. I live in District 2, but I have a question. I've seen the appraisal, the complete appraisal on the golf club. The appraisal said that the purchase price should be $8.7 million. Why are we paying $10.4 plus $55,000 towards closing costs? I would appreciate an answer on that one. I also am curious why we're going into an impact fee deferral program on single-family homes. When we all bought our homes, we paid the impact fees. Now we're going to defer it? We already have over 6,000 homes on the market now. By deferring it, you're encouraging more building instead of being able to sell what we already have built. And my last question is, on the last page, time and place of future meetings, what is this special meeting of the Cape Coral City Council for August 14th? And the only question about that is, why is it not in council chambers as a council meeting normally is? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I know you all know who I am. Well, I'm going to just piggyback off of what she said. The other question I have is, it's at 9 o'clock in the morning, so is that to deter the public to be able to attend? Or is the public allowed to attend that meeting? Because everything's top secret, so I'm kind of wondering. Okay, number one, okay? Number two, I appreciate the city council dealing with the Purple Heart people and the veterans. I'm actually going to give you a compliment, and hopefully I don't get hit by lightning. But I appreciate what you do for the veterans and the Purple Heart people, so I want to say thank you. But, you know, I always have two sides of everything. But I have a thorn in my side from before Councilman District 3, because I can't say your names, went on vacation, and what he said about the people that had the flags and the ribbons for the vets on the trees in J.C. Park, okay? And he said that we should apologize, okay, because we did it against the veterans and we did it against the council. That's a load I was blown away. Someone told me not to say anything. I'm sorry that I didn't. I was ready to beat you up the day that you did that. So I had to wait 2 weeks for that. Imagine that, okay? I just think that you owe us an apology for just even saying what you said. Number one. Okay. So let's continue. Oh. CRA, who is and I'm just curious, is it publicized? Maybe I'm missing something. You guys are talking about you're beautifying areas, you're replacing trees and so forth. What company is doing this? I would like to know that, okay? Because I would like to do some investigating. Now, here's another one. This is one of my best. Make a green space for the people, okay? I think it's a great idea. I applaud you for what you're thinking of doing for the golf club, the golf course. But my question is, why, you said we need the green spaces, and we don't have many of them. So why are you doing what you're doing with J.C. Park? Makes no sense. You're contradicting yourselves. Okay, I hope everybody else heard it. I heard it. It was as clear as day. Shepherd said, will be beautiful park.
Sir,
Okay.
as a collective council, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. As well, can I get 2 seconds back? Like Caviello Park. If anyone had the opportunity to see that park, that was 2-point-something million. It's a disgrace.
Thank you, sir.
It's a disgrace. And I wouldn't go with the garbage company we have. I would take bids from people.
Joe Kilrain, 20-year resident, District 5. I guess it's a day of compliments. It can't help to get the warm feeling when we pay tribute and show our appreciation for our veterans and our Purple Heart people. What a wonderful feeling that is. Too bad we can't have it all the time. Again, I'd like to thank the council and mayor for going ahead and delaying the second public hearing on J.C. Park unsolicited bid. I think there was a lot of valuable information that needs to be exchanged and the public be able to absorb it and understand it a little bit more thoroughly. And thank you for noting that and taking the step to delay it. I think that the slower we go, the better we understand it, the better results going to come out of that, and that applies to everything. In addition to that, I got 2 more good things to say. Basically, I think that the commercial paper instrument that we're using is a long due process. We had it in place many years ago. I think that it's a very economically astute and good methodology for doing bridge financing. And I looked at the ratings that we have for the city now from the 3 major rating services. We're going to get a very good funding rate on that. So my kudos to you for bringing up the commercial paper. Mr. Mason deserves credit for that. In addition to that, one other thing about the water and the well inspections, I think that there's a lot of potential difficulty created if we don't properly inspect those wells. If we have well installers who are doing it improperly, we can really breach and do major harm to that water source aquifer. And by having proper inspections and doing it in a very professional manner is very important. So that's another good move on your part, and I thank you for it. That's about all tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Afternoon. My name is Earl Sid. I live in the Southwest Cape. About buying a golf course, I think it's a great idea. That'd be a great destination park, plenty of land. Put your off-the-wall thinking there, leave J.C. Park alone. The citizens' input should have little flexibility. 3 minutes per 20 people equals 60 minutes on one issue. When there are more agendas, and then make a statement only 20 or here for or against. The J.C. Park thing is like 99% were against it, against the overhaul of the park. I never heard of anyone for it. And the input major issues should allow more people to speak so they can be heard. I was with the Canopy people back in 2000-something. Meetings went on for hours, but they let everybody speak. None of us got railroaded out of here, or we had cops pulling us out of here. We had some council people there, mayors out, some weren't good, but they at least let us talk. They didn't sit there and get scared. Another thing I'm wondering, where are we getting this $13 million for J.C. Park, $100 million for the yacht club, $2.4 million for the Roach Coach Park at Cape Coral Bridge? What other bond? Yes, we'll just get the people to vote to tax themselves again. Here are some recommendations I'd like to see with the city besides J.C. Park and everything else. We need to change the charter to vote for the candidates in our own districts. We need to know what party you belong to, Republican, Democrat, or Independent. This nonpartisan is just a cover-up to sound out one way, but actually you're completely the opposite. This has been suggested before, but Head Comrade wouldn't allow it. The city is running amok in building, hodgepodges of nothing. There is no coordination with blending with the section that is being proposed. Look at Tommy's Car Wash. Looks like the Tunnel of Love, 1950s. We need an experienced city planner. We need infrastructure. Not how many parks we can build right now. Those two Calusa schools on Del Prado should have been moved when they had a chance. Not how many parks we can screw up. We do have some parks have lights. When parks close at sunset and open up at sunrise, and the park ranger goes home at 10 p.m., that's when they are needed after the park closes, instead of calling the cops. When FEMA showed up after Ian at the council, I told you when the government here says we are here to help you, you better run. They put it to us. How do they help us? The White House doesn't like Florida. You, the council, the problem with the flood insurance and permitting. You closed the permitting office on Friday after Ian a few times. You wouldn't hire more employees for they would have to train them, or even move some of the others from the departments to pay the vacant spots. The computers crashed because you got a new company to revamp it. When it switches over, it lost a lot of the contractors' information who are already in the system. Here are some of my suggestions. Look for a new permitting department head. Go over some of your building and electrical inspectors and make sure.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Charlie Pease, District 5. I want to echo again the kudos that were given for two historical projects that I believe have been talked about a little bit in different ways tonight. One, Coral Grove, is truly a historical project. It's in the right location at the right time, and I think that the way that our city has structured that with the proper incentives, with that developer, with the mix of residential and commercial is the right way to go about things. So thank you. The Coral Grove project is historical. The Cape Coral Country Club purchase is historical. It's a historical piece of property. The country club opened in the early 60s and was open all the way through the mid-2000s. And that is an opportunity to do something truly great, a central park for our city. It is our regional park. We can do a nod to the Cape Coral Gardens, what a lot of people refer to as the Rose Gardens, with different sections in there. And I will advocate, and it sounds like you all are advocating, to keep the Parks and Recreation integrity on the interior of that park. Just to clarify something that I had said during the CRA meeting, I think a lot of people who aren't super familiar with the property may not realize that the historical clubhouse sat up on the front side there on Palm Tree Boulevard, and there was a restaurant there for many years. There were banquet rooms and things like that. I think there's an opportunity to work with our community to make sure that we get it right while maintaining the Parks and Recreation integrity in the interior and then doing something right on that exterior footprint. But I want to move on. I talked about two historical projects. One project that I do not believe is historical is the overhauling of J.C. Park. It is okay to change your mind. When I heard that the second hearing was delayed, I said, that's awesome, because it gives people on the council time to change their mind and rethink this. There are other irons in the fire now. There's new information. When there's new information available, it's okay to change your mind. Before, we didn't have the country club property. We do now. Let's take that money, that $15, $20 million, and let's shift it over there so we can do something great for our entire city at the country club property. The alcohol component. I'd like to hear some discussion about, are we going to change the ordinances and the alcohol ordinance related to parks just for J.C. Park? This is going to open up a can of worms for the future that can't be put back into the can. We need to think about the alcohol component, and there should not be alcohol at J.C. Park. It's okay to change your mind. And I mentioned the cost. We all thought the P3 partner was going to come in with a much bigger offer on the table. It's minuscule. $15 to $20 million of our money going toward J.C. Park is not the right project for our city. The country club property is. It is okay to change your mind.
Anthony Karp, District 1. Good afternoon, everyone, citizens that are at home. First, I want to say I'm very humbled, grateful, and honored to have known that you honored the Purple Heart people today. But I would like to inform you that I did invite a Purple Heart friend of mine. He declined. He is a wounded warrior of Kuwait, and he has a titanium leg, and he has some other physical and PTS along with it. And what he had told me as we sit at J.C. Park, he said, I don't know why they're doing this, sit at Park. A lot of us veterans come here. We like to sit. It helps us relieve the stress that we have. We talk amongst each other. We share stories. It just makes us feel better, but then it comes back again. So he wanted to come and talk, but I'm just kind of representing him. He's a good man. I think it's great that you all do these presentations and videos and honor our veterans, and thank you for doing it, and I hope you continue to do it. What I also like to say is, I would like to invite you all to come to J.C. Park and meet some of our veterans and some of our retired first responders. You all talk about, how much you want to change the park, but I never see any of you there. We use the park. It's heavily used, and I want to remind the people that were here last week, the 3 people I got that were for the redevelopment, there is a beautiful playground there, and they should come and use it. And there's also playgrounds around the whole city, newer ones and nice ones there too. I raised a family here. I used to take my daughter there, and actually both of my daughters and my son there, and we utilized it. And instead of going there to have a beer or a burger, I used to bring a ball and bat. I used to set up a volleyball net, and we used to have our own little picnic there, and we loved it for that. And I suggest that you all try to do the same, And then talking about, you have to represent all the citizens. Well, we went out there and did our due diligence with the citizens. We reached out to the 4 corners in the center of the city, and we had almost 8,000 registered voters that were in support of keeping the park as it is. We had 5,000 online people that were in favor of the park. So that's why, if you say you're going to listen to the citizens, well, then please listen. If you want to do beautification, you and I had a discussion already, District 2, about it, and some other officials here. We have a plan, and we are for change, but we're for positive change, and we want to keep the park a botanic, tranquil, and peaceful place for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Boswell, District 1. I have a whole new topic for you guys. We have stood up a website called votethecape.org. The site is for candidates to connect directly with voters. Our commitment is that it will always be fair and unbiased. And the way that we can ensure this is that nothing will be published on the site that isn't supplied by the candidate. So the candidate we're asking for submissions that address issues that face the city, but we're asking the candidate to reply, and that's all we're going to publish is what we get from the candidates. So this is an excellent opportunity for candidates to connect directly with the voters. Now, I can't mention you by name, but 3 of you are running for re-election, and those are 3 candidates that we do not have submissions from. However, we do have candidates that have submitted from every district. So the site is off and running, and we're now beginning to promote it. And this is an example of that. So I really encourage you to take advantage of it and use it to connect directly with your Cape Coral voters. Now, in this first election cycle, we just took on the city council election, but my plan is I'm basically funding it and handling all the mechanics of it. And my plan is to keep it going indefinitely and expand it to all elections that have candidates that are on a Cape Coral ballot. So over time, we will expand this beyond the city council. I may come before you and present a position on an issue. I have done it before. I was planning to do it tonight to talk about how poorly qualified the J.C. Park project was for a P3 situation, but because we postponed that, I'll postpone that as well. But because I take positions on issues, that will never happen on this site. Okay, this site will always remain unbiased and a safe place for candidates to connect directly with voters. So what I would really like is for the three candidates that are running for election to submit your responses, and we will publish them exactly the way you give them to us on the site. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Julia Atari, and I was at the Cal meeting, and again, my concern was the garbage and extending Waste Pro, because I thought the gentleman that put on the presentation worked for Waste Pro. I didn't realize he was a city worker, and I was a little confused because they. Do we have somebody in the city that can look at 2 or 3 or 4 different bids and just figure out what's the most cost-effective for the city, rather than just, you know, kind of going the lazy way and just extending this company, even though they sued us? And the other problem I had was this picture that I had given to the mayor 2 years ago about the garbage that doesn't get picked up in these multifamily units. I mean, it's a lot of garbage. They don't do any recycling, and the response was, I'm not the garbage company. Well, you're not the garbage company, but you picked the garbage company. So I would just like you to really reach out to other companies and get us somebody else that might do a better job, and find out why none of this is recyclable. This is all one big pile of junk, but yet every residential home has 2 bins. That is also very confusing to me because it doesn't make any sense. So I'd like you to maybe look into that, and maybe at your next Cal meeting, explain it, because I don't understand how this is working. Thank you.
My name is Patty Schumacher, and I live in District 5. And so stormwater fees are going up, fire protection fees going up, solid waste fees going up, city water and sewer are going up. So, and we're having staffing increases. So not only are we making the Cape less livable with your plans to demolish J.C. Park, the debacle of the misconfiguration of the pickleball complex, the shortcomings of Coviella Park, which make it useful for almost nothing, and I have no words for the yacht club, but your decisions are also rendering our city increasingly unaffordable for everyone, especially seniors and young families. You're growing the government, but you're not governing. You're not doing your job, which is to serve the needs of the residents of Cape Coral. Instead, you serve your self-interests and pursue your own personal agendas. Now, I've been looking at some of the city management, how it's organized, and I was looking at the Office of Communications, which consists of a communications manager, a communications supervisor, a public information specialist, a senior public information specialist, an administrative assistant, and a marketing specialist, 6 full-time personnel. So I'm curious, does the communications manager manage the communications supervisor? Does the communications supervisor supervise the communications manager? there's an overlap here that doesn't, it's a non sequitur. So I'm thinking that somewhere here we can pare down. And I think that this is an example that there isn't enough scrutiny as to how we organize our city government, that there are many efficiencies that are overlooked. So I'm thinking that I would really ask you to reinstitute the volunteer budget committee and task them with finding areas to implement efficiencies and cuts on non-essential expenses. Because I just really see that we're just getting more and more bloated, and there's not enough attention to how we could be more efficient and control things so people can afford to live here. Which, I mean, if we can't live here, what's the point of having you here? Thank you.
Ann Birchtold. I live down near the Yacht Club. You know, there's been a lot of discussion tonight about taxes and the burden of taxes and how we have ever-increasing taxes on various things. And I really understand, at least I thought I did, that the council has a fiduciary duty to the citizens. That means that when you get money in, that you understand the risk assessment that's associated with that. So I started thinking about this with reference to JC Park. What are the restorative costs to the park? And we've got a historical perspective. What are the restorative costs to the park after a hurricane? So we've got Hurricane Ian, we've got Irma, we've got Charlie. Did I miss out anything? Oh, and the last tropical storm. So what are the restorative costs? And that's what, a 10-year span that we can look at data? So Hurricane Ian would be a great example of this. So if we look at the damage to the park, what would be the restorative costs associated with that? So if we project forward from that, what would be the damage control during the development stage of JC Park? So that would include bulldozing and regrading where there was nothing on the foreshores. And you know, we're going to get a hurricane. May not come tomorrow, but it's going to come. And also, what would be the restorative costs after the park has been redeveloped? It doesn't mean just because the park is redeveloped that it's going to be really easy to restore it. And then who bears the burden for those costs? All the people behind me, the taxpayers. It's going to be redistributed on them. And there's a lot of risk analysis factors that really, I don't think have been clearly discussed to the population. But we need to be discussing those factors because they're really important, right? Because we don't want a park that's going to be devoid of green spaces and devoid of trees as well.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak during citizens' input, please come forward.
Yes, my name is Colleen Hines, and I do not think we should be using Waste Pro again. There's plenty of other companies out there that would be hungry for our business, and you're not giving them the opportunity to make a bid on it. And they don't do job jack squat. Pardon my language. But they don't. I've seen them drive by and not pick up things that they're supposed to be picking up. Oh, when we call and you say that you're going to come back and bring the truck back, they don't come back until the next week, and then they still may not pick up what they left the week before. Or you've got to load it into your car, and you have to haul it over to their large whatever the site. They don't take this, they don't take that. And then you're ending up having to haul it all the way back again and wait till we're good and ready to pick it up. And JC Park needs to be cleaned up, spruced up, but not torn up. Goodbye.
Anyone else wishing to speak during citizens' input? Seeing none, citizens' input is now closed. Is there any council discussion on citizens' input? Councilmember Shepherd.
Number one, the person that came up about the crossing on Jaquita, the location, because I'm concerned of that. Jaquita is really long. What location on Jaquita? There's a couple school locations. So if you could please, if a staff member can ask this woman the location that she's concerned about, so we can do something about that. When it comes to public safety and as I started the meeting today, talked about a young girl that was killed. None of us up here want to hear stories like that, and none of us up here want to see the car accidents, the people running red lights and all that. So if a lot of you, if any of you have watched the budget meeting yesterday, you would have saw the majority of the council fighting for finding money to hire more police for traffic. So we hear loud and clear. And it's difficult finding the money because a lot of people have a misconception. They think the city's in business to make money. The city doesn't make money. The city has to collect enough money to pay for the service. And I know my impact at home above and beyond the city of Cape Coral with what was done in Washington in the last few years. Our energy has doubled. Our food, I'm sorry, they say 15%. I'm sorry, my grocery bill doubled. When it comes to all our other bills, materials, going to Home Depot to fix something on your house, everything has went up 50 to 100%. What I want you to understand is the city is having them same challenges. They don't get a different price than you. All these departments get them same increases, and they have to keep the same quality of service going on. And I think they've been doing a good job with efficiency. When I'm done answering the other questions, I'm going to ask the city manager. He gave us a graph. He supplied council with a graph when we talk about the budget that showed how many employees we had many years ago versus how many we have today, and with the amount of growth that we had in the city. And it'll show you that I think our city has done an excellent job of being efficient when you see how many employees were added with the amount of growth that we had. When it comes to the price of the golf course, ma'am, the golf course was not for sale. We approached, and we've been approaching the owner there for many years, trying to convince him to sell to us. Said sometimes you might have to pay a little bit more, but you know what, to me it was important because it's going to add tremendous value to that entire part of the city. So that extra $2 million that you're talking about that we paid over, we're going to, that's a wash. That's a wash. It's going to change the lives of the people in that part of the city. I've heard stop the building. As far as I know, and I hope to God things don't change, we're still not a communist country. So when someone buys a lot, they have the right to build a house. I can't tell them, you know what, we have enough people here, we don't want you building your house here. I don't have the ability to do that, and if I did, I wouldn't use that ability. So I would like the city manager, if he can, I'm sorry I'm putting you on the spot, you might not have that material with you. But I want the residents to understand what we go through as a council. I wish more people would watch these budget meetings and they would see a lot of your concerns talked about up here. And all of us have the same concerns, the same exact concerns. And it's trying to figure out how to pay for them in the most economical fashion. And if the city manager wants to elaborate on trash as well, he can if he would like. The trash isn't an easy one, very difficult one. There's not a multitude of companies out there that can handle a city like ours. There are others, but there's not a lot. So it's not like you're getting a bid on windows on your house. You know, it's a very unique situation, and there's not a whole lot of people in that business. And let me see, I don't want to miss anybody else. The speed. We also, in the budget meeting, talked about the speeding, and we have all voted up here to implement things to control the traffic and slow people down and keep people from running red lights. So if you want to go back and watch that meeting, you'll see what we all voted on for that. And that's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Welsh?
Thank you. I wanted to touch base on the sidewalks. And Mike, you might know the answer. I believe what she's talking about is the west side of Chiquita Boulevard that does not have sidewalks. I know our goal was to have sidewalks within 1 mile of every school. So is that west side of Chiquita part of that, or are we considering that done, being that the east side where the school is completed?
Yes, the sidewalks within 1 mile of school is on the side that the school is on. So like Southwest 20th, Trafalgar, Chiquita, that's all put on one side. At intersections for students that are below, I believe, middle school and high school, those are eligible under the Safe Routes to Schools for a crossing guard. Middle-aged students and high school students are considered able-bodied to make a determination on when it's safe to cross. So crossing guards are placed where there are elementary students, and they do not have that judgment or that decision-making ability to determine when it's safe to cross.
Okay, so I'm just making sure. That would be something that I'd be interested in bringing back towards a CTAC, is maybe completing sidewalks on the opposite side of some of the major roads near high schools and middle schools like this one, knowing that the busing route won't pick them up. And those are more of the ones that are walking and biking to schools are typically your middle school and high school. Most elementary school, I believe parents still take their children, especially these days. Secondly, I know that we deferred the meeting on J.C. Park, and I don't know how many of you are going to be here the next meeting. I'm assuming all of you, but for those who might be watching at home tonight, I have read through the agreement, and just like a few speakers said, now's the time to kind of take a look. I've always been a proponent for a design. Was excited when I heard about a P3 that might potentially help fund it, but looking at it and reviewing it, I can say that I don't support what's being presented. So that I'll talk more and elaborate on when we have more discussions amongst council when this comes back up, but I wanted to let everyone know what my position on that was today. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention a few things, a few of the comments that were given. I know some of the people are still here. I think a couple have left. As far as solid waste, council collectively gave a direction to the city manager to work with Waste Pro for number one, to see if they are interested in giving a extension on their contract, and number two, to see what that extension would look like. I believe we've given the city manager until December 31st of this year to have those discussions, and then at some point, council collectively, probably at a committee of the whole in the future, we'll see exactly how that looks and what those numbers may or may not be. Additionally, we've recently received some information regarding solid waste fees throughout the state that know if you look at what we are paying in a rate compared to other cities of our size, we're paying substantially a low rate. We know there's going to be a 30 to 40% increase in our solid waste fees when this contract probably comes up for renewal. So I think I heard one person mention that our solid waste fees have been increasing. And we're trying to do that a little over time, over the next several years. We know that big hit's coming. So the old story, we can pay for it a little as we go, or we can pay that big lump sum once we get that increase. So that's the approach that I think all of council has taken to try to put that money. A lot of people say, well, how come we're paying more than what the actual charge is for solid waste? We have a reserve. What we're trying to hopefully do is soften the blow in 3 years when that contract comes up for renewal, whether it's for Waste Pro or any other vendor that we may utilize. I think I heard someone mention about services, cutting the services as far as our solid waste. We set the expectation. The city staff will bring that to council. We will set exactly what the expectation is for our solid waste removal. I'm almost certain, I can speak on behalf of all my council members here, we're not interested in cutting the service that we have now. We already have 1 day a week. I know some cities have 2 days a week, but I don't think any of us have a desire to cut services. If anything, I think we need to try to improve upon the services that we do get, and that's why we have the inspectors. We have to make sure that they're fulfilling their contractual responsibilities. If you go back a few years ago and we had all those problems, you know how many inspectors we had? 0. We didn't have any checks and balance. That's a part of the problem. So that's why we've seen, we may not be there yet, but we've seen an improvement over the last 3 years. I also hope staff will get with the individual on Chiquita Boulevard to at least try to identify what problem may or may not exist there. Also, if Public Works could get with the young lady with the Wildwood community to see exactly what the issue is there with stormwater management. Someone had asked about the special meeting that we have on the schedule. I know a lot of you come for citizens' input and then leave. And then we have discussion. We'll be here for several more hours. One of our recent meetings, we, as a body, had voted to have a special meeting on the city attorney's contract renewal, or not his contract renewal, his evaluation. We do that with the city manager, our city auditor, and our city attorney, who all works for the city council. So that's what that special meeting's about. Typically, it's held in any personnel matters, whether it's those individuals or our staff that works for us. We usually have those meetings in conference room 220. We've been doing it last 6-7 years I've been here, and I'm sure we'll continue to do that in fashion, but it is open to the public, so anyone can attend. Someone had asked why we're spending $10.4 million for the golf course instead of the 8.7 as far as the appraised value. We do have an ordinance in place in this city that we are allowed to pay up to 20% above appraised value. If you do the math, 8.7, 20% above is 10.4. I can tell you that we were extremely close. I know a lot of people are happy today. I know all of council is happy that we were able to bring this contract forward to fruition. But I can tell you, we were teetering where this wasn't going to happen. So the golf course wanted $14 million. They weren't going to budge. Luckily, city council said, we're not paying that much. And we held our ground. And I can tell you that one day out of the blue, the assistant city manager got a phone call, said, yeah, we'll take that deal. So that's how close we were. It almost didn't happen. Someone asked about contractors and beautification and medians. That's a public record. Going down to the clerk's office, you can file a public records request and you can get whatever information that you want. Someone mentioned impact fee deferral program. We do have that. I think the young lady said, well, we have 6,000 residents are being built. Why do we want to have deferrals? First of all, it's not for everything. Apparently, she didn't know all the information. It's only for workforce housing. Only that component. Not the 5,000 to 6,000 residential homes that we've been building year after year. So it's an incentive program, workforce housing only. So we have to make sure we know the accurate information. One last thing I want to mention, the golf course. Once we purchase the property, that's the beginning step. We already know we still have environmental remediation issues that we need to address. We need to work with FDEP in order to develop a plan and make sure we execute that plan. So this park probably won't be improved probably for a couple years. So I just want to kind of set the expectation. This isn't something that we're going to buy tomorrow and next week start building something there. We still have a lot of things to do just with the remediation. And again, we'll open this up. We'll start having community dialogue. What do we want there? So I think this is definitely a 3 to 4 year plan down the road. Many of us might not even be here when those discussions are had. So I think it's a step in the right direction, but we still have a long way to go. So that's all I have. Councilmember Steinke.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to remind folks that for the duration of time that we are under contract for Waste Pro, if you have an issue, absolutely use the 311 system. If you call Waste Pro directly, we have no way of monitoring and determining if they get the job done or not to fix your service issue. And for the cases that I've been involved with where my help has been sought out, every time I've referred it to our solid waste department through the 311 system, every time it's been handled very expediently. There's an old saying that you've got to inspect what you expect, and that's why we have the people to go out and make sure that Waste Pro is doing what they're contracted to do, and that's why we want you to tell us about any issues that you're having with Waste Pro through 311 so that a case can be set up and we can follow through and make sure that Waste Pro does the job that we're paying them to do with your dollars. So use the 311 system. It does work. That's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Shepherd.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one more thing. It's disheartening when I hear people come to the podium and say we don't listen, because we do listen. And that's an example right there. When Waste Pro was doing a horrible job a couple years ago, we were getting a lot of calls from everybody, including myself, of houses being skipped. My own house would be skipped sometimes. And Waste Pro would say, they must have put their trash out after the truck went by, right? It's just something you deal with. So what do? We heard the concerns. We had to fix the problem. So what did this council do? We said we have to have inspectors to go out and make sure they're not skipping and keep an eye on them. And then to hear people come to the podium and mock us for having inspectors, we're responding to the public's needs. That's our job. Just like J.C. Park, people are upset and they don't want to lose shade. So we changed the plan was changed, I think, 2 or 3 times. There's going to be 500 trees planted at that park. It's going to be one of the most beautiful parks in the city. So we did listen and we did respond. So I think a lot of it is just information. I think people need to do a little more research before they come to the podium. There's a lot of information on the city website and on the city Facebook page. And there's many meetings, like we just had a budget meetings that were open to the public and no one attended. So, but if you're interested, they're good meetings to go to and you get a lot of education, really learn what's going on. So thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other comments for citizens input. Appreciate you coming out today. We'll move on to item 9A, is the consent agenda. I'll now open up the consent agenda for council to pull any items for discussion. Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to pull item number 11, Resolution 252-24.
Okay, any other items from any of the council members? Not seeing any, I will entertain a motion for the remaining items except for Resolution 252-24.
So moved.
Second.
Any council discussion on that? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden.
Aye.
Long.
Aye.
Shepherd.
Aye.
Steinke.
Aye.
Welsh.
Aye.
Carr.
Aye.
Costin.
Aye.
Gunter.
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, Resolution 252-24 was pulled by Councilmember Steinke. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. The only reason I pulled item number 11 is to give credit where credit is due. I am a member of the Tourist Development Council of Lee County. I happen to be a non-voting member. So all of the input that I give has to be considered by the voting members of the TDC. And then the recommendations of the TDC have to be taken to the Lee County Board of County Commissioners. And we had requested, nearly $800,000 for the betterment of the Yellow Fever Creek project, which is going to be by far one of the most unique parks, not only in our city but in our area, to bring the outdoor environment, the wildlife observation to the citizens of our area, and also certainly what the Tourist Development Council is concerned about is attracting tourists to our area to bring bed tax dollars here so that we can use those bed tax dollars for the beautification of and attractiveness of our cities within Lee County. And so that project was initially rejected, and it was said that it did not qualify for beach and shoreline, which is where these appropriations initially started. And through the work of our city staff, working with county staff, it was determined that there was a subsection within that Florida State statute that the funding for Yellow Fever Creek and a couple other projects, one other one with our city and another one with unincorporated Lee County, would qualify under that subsection. So it was reconsidered, and my voting member colleagues on the Tourist Development Council were in 100% support and voted unanimously to approve and recommend that funding to the Lee County Board of County Commissioners. In that process, there were $13.2 million worth of requests across the county, and there was only $12.3 million worth of funding that had been planned. And through the influence of our voting members of the TDC, there was not only a recommendation to fully fund that project, but also to encourage the Board of County Commissioners to dip into the reserves and go beyond the planned $12.3 million of funding to the tune of a little over $500,000 of dipping into the county's TDC reserves to enable this funding to come to us. So the only reason that I pulled it was to make sure that everybody knew all the work that went into that and the cooperation that we received from the voting members of the TDC that I work with, and then moving on to the Board of County Commissioners to get our county representatives to support us and provide this needed funding for that park. And so with that being said, I would like to make a motion for the approval of Resolution 252-24.
Second.
Okay. Any other council discussion on that topic? Great job, Councilmember Steinke and Councilmember Shepherd.
I just wish a lot of people didn't leave that were concerned about cost of parks to hear the great news. So information's important. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion second on the floor. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden.
Aye.
Long.
Aye.
Shepherd. Aye. Steinke.
Aye.
Welsh.
Aye.
Carr.
Aye.
Costin.
Aye.
Gunter.
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, item 9C is unfinished business. Follow-up items for City Council. We do not have anything listed. Council have any follow-up items? Okay, seeing none, the second and final public hearing for Resolution 209-24 has been deferred and continued on August 21st. We'll move on to item 9D, which is new business. We have Resolution 235-24. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The resolution before the City Council today is to enter into and execute a contract for purchase of properties known as Bimini East. Earlier today, the CRA Board passed a motion to provide a financial mechanism to support this acquisition, and earlier on your consent, you all just agreed to enter into that interlocal with the CRA. So the funding for this acquisition is going to be coming from the CRA. However, the city is the entity that will be buying the land. The intent, as described during this CRA board meeting, is to take ownership of the property, ultimately raise the buildings that are there now, assemble them into a larger piece, vacate the road rights away, and enter into a purchase and sale agreement with a developer through a developer's agreement like the Cape Coral Town Center to build a mixed-use integrated redevelopment in the South Cape and Bimini East. So I would request the approval of this resolution to move this process to the next phase, which would be the closing and acquisition, and then ultimately we would move forward with the redevelopment of the properties.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion for Resolution 235-24.
Motion to approve 235-24.
Second.
Is there any council discussion? Councilmember Carr.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mr. City Manager, just to clarify, when we acquire these properties, there are some that are occupied currently. That's correct, right?
Yes.
And how will we handle the management of those in the time frame before they are exited or whatever the circumstance?
Thank you for the question. So we worked with the current owner, who is the landlord of all of the tenants, and we have entered into as part of this, there is a management agreement where he will take a management fee as if any other owner was using a commercial broker or commercial realtor firm. So he will continue to handle the day-to-day if there's a broken water heater, an air conditioner, any other issue. All of the leases that he currently has have a 90-day clause if he sold the property. So he will be working, if we execute this when the property closes, as the property management firm or property manager on behalf of the city, he will move towards ending those leases and getting those buildings unoccupied so we can move forward with the redevelopment.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Any other council discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden.
Aye.
Long.
Aye.
Shepherd.
Aye.
Steinke.
Aye.
Welsh.
Aye.
Carr.
Aye.
Costin.
Aye.
Gunter.
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, move on to Resolution 260-24. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This resolution is to enter into the purchase and sale agreement for the purchase of the old golf course on Palm Tree, off of Palm Tree Boulevard. Earlier today, the CRA board did pass a resolution providing a funding source of $5.395 million. It is intended that $4 million will come from the general fund and $1 million will come from stormwater, which I have in my proposed budget, if approved, would be available on October 1st, and this closing would happen soon after October 1st, when we would schedule the close. The intent of the city's acquisition to this property is for future green space to look at the needs of the urban downtown area and the regional park for the city of Cape Coral. We do intend on doing some things immediately that are not development related, but more maintenance related. More specifically, right now, I believe the owner cuts the property 4 or 5 or 6 times a year. We will be looking to put that on a more routine maintenance schedule so that the property owners in the area don't have to look at the tall grass. There have been some invasive exotics that have grown up on the property. Earleaf acacia, Brazilian pepper, and Australian pines. We will go in there and look to remove those. And then we will embark upon a process to engage the public, most likely after we go through the Parks Master Plan. I know in our budget we have an update to the Parks and Rec Master Plan where the Parks Director is going to be looking at updating after 10 years of the old one to see what we need in the community, what types of programs, what types of parks, what types of amenities, and then we can use that data then to help kind of shape what may be a good fit for the golf course property. Take that data and then go into more focus group topics on which of those items in the Parks Master Plan will feed well and will help support a vibrant downtown Southeast Cape. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for Resolution 260-24.
Motion to approve.
Any council discussion? Councilmember Carr.
Just another similar question of the last. Once we take ownership of this property, I understand we'd be responsible for the maintenance that already exists from the current property owner, to include the cutting of the grass, simplistically. But I know as of late, there was some homeless issues there that have escalated, and the owner was cooperative, and it ultimately posted signs of no trespassing, and I think the problem was mitigated with the police department's efforts. I would expect that we'll continue efforts similar to that, or even increase those efforts to maintain some level of security out there for the residents.
Yes, I've spoken to the police chief not only about this property, but also the Bimini properties as well.
Okay, because it is very large, obviously, and people do utilize it, have utilized it for years, probably inappropriately, quite frankly. They were trespassing in every respect, but the owner chose not to fence it off or address those issues. I think knowing that the property is utilized for exercise in some ways, take them dog walks, what have you, I think we need to make sure that, at least now that it's city-owned, we take a little bit more effort to make sure at least it's safe for people that are occupying the property. Because I don't think we intend to rope it off or fence it off in the meantime before we move it forward, correct?
I'm not so sure that's accurate. The site is contaminated.
Okay.
And for us to allow people on it until we mitigate those concerns would not be prudent on our behalf. So we do need to get an understanding of certain, it may not be the whole thing, but there may be some areas where we do need to protect the health and safety of our public. And those are things that we will need to work towards. But as far as just letting everybody in there, you know, on day one after we acquire it, I cannot say that is a possibility.
Yeah, it wasn't, I'm just talking, I know that actually occurs now. So I think if we're going to stop that, I think it's important that we convey that information out as quickly as we can and as good as we can in that immediate area, because I think those are the folks, I don't think people are traveling there so much to utilize it. I think it's more the adjacent property owners or surrounding area property owners that do frequent that location. You know, but if we're going to block it off in some manner, I just want to take good due care and do that properly and not make it a adversarial element, but a safety element for everyone involved.
Absolutely. Safety is first and foremost, and that's the genesis of my comment. We do have a due diligence period. We do have a consultant on board that has been following the entire process that the current owner has been doing, so we have a good handle on generally where those areas are. What we need to explore over the next 30 to 45 days is what extent do we need to go to protect the public who may want to be using the site.
Great. Thank you, Mike, for that. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Mike, I'm sure this will be done, but I just want to hear it come from you. Besides it being mowed on a regular basis and the invasives being removed, there's some areas that are really need to be cleaned up with a lot of mess, a lot of debris, just are we going to do a good cleaning and just have the property look decent while we're going through the process?
Yes, one of the things that we've talked about, we know that all the neighbors around the park, you know, have wanted this day to come for a long time. So we've talked about even trying to maybe do a cleanup day with the community to show the immediate support for the acquisition of the park. We haven't coordinated all that. I don't know all the legal, but we're thinking of ways to immediately engage the public in turning the place around.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other lights on, we have a motion second on the floor. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden.
Aye.
Long. Shepherd.
Aye.
Stankey.
Aye.
Welsh.
Aye.
Carr.
Aye.
Costin.
Aye.
Gunter.
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, item 9E is personnel actions, none listed. 9F, petitions to council, none listed. 9G is follow-up items for city management, none listed. Mr. City Manager?
I have none.
Okay, we have item 10, ordinances and resolution. I think we'll take a break till about 6:40, and then we'll come back. I guess he's still in that room. Thank you, sir. Let's get this show on the road. Start with Adam in a second. Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order. Item 10A is public hearings, first of which is quasi-judicial hearings. First of quasi-judicial and only quasi-judicial hearing is ordinance 50-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 50-24, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cape Coral, Florida, amending the City of Cape Coral official zoning district map of all property within the limits of the City of Cape Coral by approving a residential planned unit development entitled North Cape Estates, including rezoning property described as a tract or parcel of land being lots 38, 39, and 40, Block 5268, parcels A and B, Block 5269, lots 14 through 21, and lots 26 and 27, Block 5270, lots 5 through 9, Block 5271, lots 19 through 22, Block 5257, and part of Northwest 41st Avenue and Northwest 42nd Place, all lying in Cape Coral Subdivision, Unit 82. And Lot 47, Block 5257, Tract 5268-B, Tract 5271-B, and Tract 5271-A, all lying in Cape Coral North Spreader Waterway, and the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 36, Township 43 South, Range 22 East, Lee County, Florida, as more particularly described herein. From the single-family residential zone to a residential planned unit development, and approving a master concept plan for a single-family residential development. Property located west of Old Burnt Store Road, south of the Spreader Waterway, east of Northwest 43rd Avenue, and north of Gulf Stream Parkway. Providing for conditions of approval, providing severability, and an effective date.
Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Because this is a quasi-judicial hearing, it does require that there be any ex parte communications that may have been had regarding the applicant, to disclose those by the members of the City Council who may have had those ex parte communications.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Welsh.
Yes, I, as a city council member, am disclosing that I spoke on the 7th day of August, 2024, with John Bashaw, an interested party involved in this quasi-judicial hearing, and the subject of our meeting was this item. Also, approximately 3 weeks ago, I spoke with the property owner about the project and what he is trying to accomplish with this PUD as well. Thank you.
Councilmember Carr.
Thank you, Mayor. I also spoke today as a city council member with Mr. John Bashaw, an interested party associated with this quasi-judicial hearing subject tonight. I also spoke today, August 7th, with the city manager about the same topic. That's all.
Councilmember Cosden.
Yes, I, as a city council member, am disclosing that I spoke on the second day of August with John Bashaw, an interested party involved in this quasi-judicial hearing, and the subject of our meeting was this item.
Thank you, Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. I, too, as a city council member, am disclosing that I spoke today, the 7th day of August, with John Bashaw, an interested party involved with this quasi-judicial hearing, and the subject of our meeting is this item.
Councilmember Shepherd.
I, as a city council member, am disclosing that I spoke on the 7th day of August 2024 with John Bashaw, an interested party involved in the quasi-judicial hearing, and the subject of our meeting was this item.
Councilmember Long, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I am.
You have any,
Yes, sir. Yeah, multiple occasions I've spoke with Mr. Bashaw regarding the project, as well as the developer, the owner of the property itself, with regards to just the general nature of the project, and the some of the material issues related to the request.
Okay, thank you, sir. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. Anyone wishing to speak, provide testimony, must be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
I'll turn it over to staff.
All right, good evening, Council. Justin Heller, Senior Planner with the Cape Coral Planning Division. This is Ordinance 50-24. And the applicants are requesting to rezone 17.12 acres from R1 to RPUD. They're also requesting approval of a master concept plan and approval of proposed uses, densities, and dimensional standards. They're requesting relief from section 3.4.7.G.3c, which requires minimum of 25% open space for PUDs to allow them to have 16.1% open space. They're requesting relief from section 5.1.8, which requires residential PUDs with 20 units or more to install sidewalks along street frontages to allow for no sidewalks within the PUD. And relief from section 3.4.7.G.3d to allow a perimeter wall in lieu of landscaping between a PUD and adjacent land uses. Here is the general location map of the PUD. West of Old Burnt Store Road, south of the North Spreader Waterway, north of Northwest 16th Terrace. Some background on the site. Again, 17.12 acres consisting of 4 large undeveloped tracts and 14 surrounded platted parcels. Site has a future land use of single-family, multifamily, and R1 single-family residential zoning. Most of the project area is owned by the developer, but 4 smaller platted parcels are individually owned by other applicants. The site is undeveloped except for 1 single-family home. The RPUD area is not presently serviced by city utilities. Properties to the east, west, and south share the same future land use and zoning designation with single-family residential uses. To the north is the North Spreader Waterway and Charlotte Harbor Preserve. Some characteristics of the master concept plan. The site will be replatted into 20 single-family parcels ranging from 0.57 to 0.74 acres. There are 4 platted single-family parcels will be incorporated into development but will remain as originally platted. The RPUD proposes a density of 1.4 units an acre. There will be a new 105-foot wide, approximately, canal dividing the development down the middle and provides waterfront access to the newly platted lots. There will also be creation of approximately 14 boat basins. There are 2 private internal roads. There's a buffer wall proposed around the perimeter of the development, and access into the properties inside will be through 8 gated entrances. All right, so our subdivision analysis, access into development will be from Northwest 41st Ave, Northwest 42nd Place, and Northwest 16th Terrace. That'll be through the gated entrances. The cul-de-sacs and streets shall conform to the city's engineering design standards, and the 2 internal roads do not connect and are separated by the central canal. Centralized utilities are not available to the site. The individual single-family parcels will be serviced by private well and septic. There are 8-inch fire standpipes that will be installed as part of this project for fire suppression, and those locations of the standpipes are shown on the master concept plan. The site will be replatted. There will be 20 new residential lots. The newly created lots will be larger than our half-acre minimum requirement. There's 4 smaller platted parcels that will be excluded from the replat. Sidewalks, no sidewalks are proposed in this PUD. The applicants are seeking relief from section 3.4.7.G.3D, which states PUDs of 20 or more lots or units are required to install sidewalks along all street frontages abutting and within development. There are no common area amenities within this development where residences might use sidewalks to take advantage of them. So this is why they're requesting to not have to install those sidewalks. Shoreline stabilization. The shoreline abutting any newly created canal or boat basin shall be protected by a seawall at time of subdivision construction. These are tidal waters, and only seawalls are allowed for stabilization per city code. When these are constructed, the seawalls are needed to prevent any kind of erosion into our waterways. The proposed uses for this PUD are single-family residential and essential services. There is a new boathouse accessory use that is proposed. For the purposes of the RPUD, a boathouse is defined as an enclosed structure built entirely or partly over water for the primary purpose of sheltering watercraft and associated boating equipment. And these structures may be attached or detached from the single-family residence and shall be located over the boat basins shown on the master concept plan, and they can have up to 1 boathouse per lot. Here is the master concept plan that shows the configuration of the proposed parcels as well as the proposed infrastructure. So the dimensional standards for this RPUD, all setbacks are going to be measured from your property lines. The single-family dwellings are going to have the 25-foot front, 20-foot rear, and 7.5-foot side setback. Accessory structures are going to have a front, side, and rear setback of 10 feet. Fences and walls are going to be allowed in the front, side, and rear yards with a 0-foot setback. Staff is recommending maximum height of 6 feet to be more compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Any fences or walls within 25 feet of the front property line or 20 feet of a public waterway are going to need to have 75% open mesh above 3 feet in height for visibility purposes. The dimensional standards for boathouses. Maximum height is going to be identical to the principal structure of 38 feet. Standard 2 here, developer is requesting a 0-foot setback for the rear and side yards to ensure boathouses are more compatible with adjacent properties. Staff is recommending that if boathouses are attached, they shall meet the minimum 7.5-foot side setback of the primary structure. This is noted in condition 6A. This is one of 3 conditions that staff and the applicants are not in total agreement on the conditions. The reason staff put this condition in is we viewed the attached boathouse as similar to an attached garage, which is why we recommended that the boathouses meet the same setback as the home. Boathouses shall also not extend more than 20 feet over land past the perimeter of the boat basin as measured from the center of the seawall cap. And boathouses shall not exceed 75% of the first floor living area square footage of the principal structure or 2,500 square feet, whichever is greater. So for PUDs, they do require a perimeter landscape buffer. The boundary between a PUD and adjacent land uses shall be landscaped with a buffer that has sufficient width and shall include screening to ensure proper transition and increase compatibility between land uses. The buffer shall be approved by City Council. The developer in this case did not propose any perimeter landscape buffer. In lieu of that landscape buffer, they proposed a wall around the perimeter of the development. However, since no landscaping is proposed, this PUD standard wasn't met, so staff did recommend a landscape buffer condition. This is condition 15, in order to meet this requirement for PUDs. This is their open space plan. For PUDs, 25% open space is required. In this case, they are providing 16.1%. That equates to about 2.68 acres. Of that, a little over 2 acres of that is the central canal. There's 0.62 acres in drainage easements and 0.06 acres of just open space. The oversized lots will give additional green space between the residences. So the applicant is asking for council approval of the reduced 16.1% open space for this project. For the rezone, they're rezoning 17.12 acres from R1 to RPUD. Here's our maps, the before and after. In our rezone analysis, under section 3.4.6 of our land development code, we find that the requested RPUD rezone is consistent with the single-family, multifamily future land use classification of the site. We find the full range of uses within the RPUD will be similar to the R1 zone properties in the area and should be compatible. Staff didn't anticipate any compatibility concerns between the RPUD area and the surrounding lands. The RPUD does have similar uses and will have an overall lower density of 1.4 units an acre, or just 24 total single-family parcels. This proposed density is less than the maximum 4.4 units an acre that would be permitted under the R1 zoning. The RPUD will provide larger lots and also has a unique boathouse accessory use for residents wanting something a little different than your typical 10,000 square foot lot. So the Cape Coral Planning Division is recommending approval of the requested RPUD with 28 conditions. The hearing examiner recommended approval of the requested RPUD with the conditions and the HEX recommendation as well. For correspondence, I just had a few requests for some additional information. And one resident who wasn't opposed to development did state that he was opposed to the wall. So with that, I'll stand by for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. I'll give the opportunity for the applicant that may want to provide any testimony.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Joe Mazurkowitz, President of BJN Consultant, here on behalf of the applicant for this project. I'd like to first start off to saying thank you to the applicant. We started this project 4 years ago, and bringing it here. When I looked at his original concept, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a heavy lift because this is like nothing else in Cape Coral. And it is like nothing else in Cape Coral, and that's why I think it's so special. Also want to thank staff for 4 years ago taking their first look at this and like, oh, and then finally getting down to something that they can recommend with some conditions. And to be honest with you, of the conditions, the 28 conditions, we only have problems with 3 of them, and that's what I'd like to focus on here this evening. Condition number 17, the shoreline of any new subdivision lot in the PUD shall be protected by seawall prior to the approval of the subdivision plat for the development. This particular case provides us problems because if we do that before we sell the lots to the owners, and we can't sell the lots to the owners until we have a subdivision plat, the location of the cutouts for the boathouses need to be flexible. So we would propose that we would put the seawalls in once the lots are sold, prior to the development like required by the city code, prior to a building permit being issued. So we are treated like every other vacant single-family home property in the city of Cape Coral. This is a condition that is because it's a RPUD And there's another condition for the same reasons that staff does not have the ability to waive these conditions. Only you have the ability to do so. The second one that we would like to talk about is the minimum 5-foot wide landscape strip surrounding the facility. This is residential property adjoining residential property. If we were a regular single-family home, we could build to our lot line with our fence. Wall fence is the same concept, 6 foot high that you can't see through. We would like the same ability to put our fence on our property line without the 5-foot buffer. Specifically, if you look at the unique configuration of the lots, this is not a square. And as our edge of our PUD is adjacent to the back lots of most of the adjoining properties. So you literally have in someone's backyard a fence, a 5-foot buffer, and then they choose to fence in their yard. It would be a fence with a 5-foot buffer in between. It'd be very hard to get into and maintain. If you allow us to put our fence on the property line, the adjoining properties, if they were to build a fence, would only have to build up to our fence. You wouldn't have two fences 5 foot apart, separated from each other by a landscape buffer that near impossible to get into and maintain. And then finally, the last one is pretty much just an aesthetic issue. And staff not rightfully, but staff presented their reasons for doing it, and that is detached boathouses shall have a minimum side rear setback to 0, but boathouses that are attached to the primary structure shall have a minimum side foot setback of 7.5. Once again, staff told you, both in the hearing examiner and tonight, that they went by their conditions for a garage, and it makes perfect sense if these were garages. These are boathouses in the back, and the majority of them will be adjacent to each other like they are laid out in the master concept plan. As you drive by these houses, whether attached or detached, you would want a similar look, just like staff recommended for garages in the front. So you'd want, whether attached or detached, you'd want a zero lot line for boathouses, whether attached or detached. And those are the three things we're asking for. 2 of them, staff didn't have the ability to make the adjustments. Actually, the city council, the assistant city attorney at our last meeting said only city council can make that determination. We said, fine, we'll bring that to city council for their consideration. So what we're asking for you to do this evening is to recognize that we could have built over 60 units, 60 single-family homes in this area. We're building 24, a lot lower density, a lot bigger homes, a large footprint of green around each home. We are probably higher priced single-family homes than the adjacent properties. For all practical purposes, we want to be treated like every other lot in the city of Cape Coral where it comes to the wall and where it comes to the timing of building the seawall. And then the aesthetic situation of making it consistent throughout the community for the look of the boathouses in the back, whether attached or detached. They will be adjacent to each other in between the 2 houses. So we respectfully request a motion to approve our PUD with the elimination of conditions 17, 15, and 6A. We thank you very much, and we would stand ready for any questions if there are any.
Thank you. At this time, I'll now open up public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 50-24, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion regarding ordinance 50-24?
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance, 50-24 with the removal of conditions number 17, 15, and 6A.
Second.
Okay, I'll open up for any council discussion. Councilmember Carr?
Thank you, Mayor. Just have some questions. Some of them are addressing the 3 conditions requested to be removed, and some have to do with some other dimensions, just so I have an understanding of the project itself. The depth of the cutouts, what will they be? Do we have that dimension? I can't see it on my plan here. Or the proposed depth of them into the property?
It's 45 by 55 for the boat basins.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the appropriate word, boat basins that we're calling those. Now, but the boat structure can only go 20 feet in? Am I reading that correctly?
No, it can overlap land, so it can go 20 feet over land as well.
But I thought it said from the center of the seawall, oh, the front seawall where it cuts in.
From the seawall cap, it can
Okay.
extend.
It's a new concept. I'm trying to get my head around it. It also talks about, I'm trying to get an idea what it would look like without the side set, having a zero setback on an attached boathouse from the main structure. That means there'd be no access to the rear of the property on one side of the house, if I'm thinking about that correctly. In other words, if you're on a zero lot line for the boathouse and you attach it to the main structure, would you be able to walk around without going through the house?
Yes, sir. The zero lot line would end at the end of the boathouse.
Okay.
The house itself would still have the appropriate side setback.
So when the wording says attached, you're asking to have it removed if it's attached.
Right. If it's attached only at a section adjacent to, not on this, in a side setback from 20 foot off the seawall. The attachment is 20 foot deep and the width of the boathouse is within that area.
Okay.
Right now, staff's allowing and recommending if they are detached, it's okay. It's when they're attached, they want it to go to a side setback.
Okay. Can staff elaborate on that one for me? Just try to give me a better understanding. I'm trying to visualize that. I'm having trouble, and I just want to understand why we objected to it if it's that simplistic.
So for the detached, they're not under the same roof as the principal structure. It's a separate accessory structure. We met them halfway on that one and gave them the 0 foot setback. When it was attached, like I said, we were viewing them more similar to a garage that is physically attached to your house. It's going to share a roof, everything like that. So we went with the setback of 7.5 feet, which is the same as the principal structure. That was our logic behind it.
If we allow them to construct the wall on the property line and do what Mr. Mazurkowitz described and have the property owner, if they want to install a fence, they can effectively butt it to their fence on the rear property line, would that be acceptable for the purposes of a pool barrier in our current code? My understanding is you have to have your own independent fence to meet that criteria.
You could do a fence or a pool cage.
Let's say you have an open pool, would a fence abutting their fence or tied, you won't be able to tie it in, but if you abut it, would that satisfy the need for the property owner for an open pool safety barrier?
Yeah, as long as it's fenced and you can't get around it.
Okay.
That's fine, yeah. If the pool house was built all the way to the property line and the fence connected into that, that would essentially seal off the backyard.
I'm sorry, about the outside of the development property owner.
Oh, you're talking about the outside, like
Yes.
the perimeter? No, each individual lot would have to have their own fence if they had a pool.
So if they come to the property line with their fence, the property owner outside of this development would still have to put up a rear fence line to meet this, to satisfy our requirements for safety on a pool installation.
Yes, they wouldn't, I don't think they'd be able to use the community wall as
So you'd have to
their
have a
rear.
fence against the fence to meet the criteria.
I live there.
It's a question only because I think there's some misunderstanding about that, and I want, before I go along with the recommendation to bring this to the property line, I want there to be a benefit to the adjacent property owner that they can realize and not be told later that they have to put up a 6-foot fence themselves or a 4-foot fence themselves to meet the criteria for our pool safety ordinance.
In Heatherwood Lakes, subdivision I live in, we have a perimeter fence. When we do an enclosure or we will put fencing in for pools, we just do across the side property lines. We use the existing back property fence to enclose the pool.
Okay,
The
and
pool.
Amy's nodding her head,
Yeah,
correct?
that's correct,
Okay.
yes.
I just want to make sure, because I want to have them realize the benefit to the wall being on the property line if we approve this, so,
It makes less sense to have walls against walls.
agreed 100%. Thank you, Mayor, that's all I have for right now.
Thank you. Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. Staff had an issue with the detached boathouses versus attached boathouses and being able to be 0 lot line versus 7.5. Could you share with what that concern was? Why did that become an exception?
It goes back to our view, how we view attached structures. It is ancillary, and it's still ancillary to the primary use. If the primary use is set at 7.5, that ancillary attached use should be at the same setback. So that's kind of how we got there. And you're really looking, when we talk about setbacks, we're really looking at, they accomplish basically 5 things, right? It looks at safety, privacy, access, and aesthetics. So, as well as utility access. In this case, there's no utility access. So that's where kind of why we try to keep those view corridors open.
So, as I'm picturing this and visualizing how that would line up, the residence itself has to have a 7.5 foot setback, and so then if it's an attached boathouse, then literally from the front of that house all the way down to the water will be a wall. You've got the house, and then the attached boathouse that makes its way all the way down to the canal.
The house will still have to have the side setback,
Correct.
just the boathouse.
Right, but
And here-
if we're gonna require a 7.5 foot setback for an attached boathouse, then you got one solid wall going all the way down to the seawall cap.
If you're going to require a 7, yes, sir.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
That was,
I didn't understand your question, or your
Yeah.
presentation, yes.
So what you're asking for in the elimination of 6A is that when looking down the side wall of that house, that's 7.5 feet off the property line, that at the very end, you're seeing a small wall cutting it off. So to some degree, you've got a little 7.5 foot grass alley running down the side of the house.
Yes, sir. And it would be identical whether they are attached or detached.
Okay. Now, connecting up with 17, where you're not wanting to have to put seawalls in until building permit, which, by the way, I agree with. And one of the pieces that you use as rationale for that is there needs to be flexibility with where that basin is. Who's to say that we're going to have 2 boathouses right up against each other? And who's to say that this property owner decides they want an attached, and this property owner says they want a detached? Now where do we stand on the 15 feet between the houses and what it ends up being down on the water, where that boathouse is either on the property line, and these folks decided not to put their basin there. They decided to put it in the middle of their property for whatever reason.
The way the master concept plan is set up is that the boat basins will be adjacent to each other.
But you said you need flexibility.
Well, whether they want one or don't want one is the question in hand. That's why, that's what we need. And whether they want it on the right side or they have 2 lots that want it together, 2 property owners get it and say, listen, let's do it on your left side, my right side. But the basins are set up to be adjacent to each other. And the look from the street, which is I think you're describing, whether they are attached or detached, will be identical if you go with the requests we're making.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. The other question that I had was on 15. And this really, the greater concern for my question here is for those properties that are not involved in the PUD, the perimeter homes, that if that wall is allowed to be placed on the property line, and those property owners that live on the perimeter outside of the PUD, they have their, if you will, 7.5-foot setback. All they're going to have is 7.5 feet to a 5-foot wall, and then 7.5 feet later, they're going to have potentially a 34-foot wall on an estate home. So my concern by having that wall that close, that perimeter wall, that 5-foot wall on the property line, is that the surrounding neighbors, their view corridor for where they chose to live and the canal views and whatnot, and just the overall, if you will, ambiance of the estuary, they're going to end up looking like they're living inside of a cave by having everything pushed up against them at 7.5 feet from their house. So to not have some type of a buffer, the 5-foot buffer, concerns me for those surrounding properties and literally what could end up being concrete walls that hem them in. At least a 5-foot buffer gives them a little bit of breathing room and a little bit more of a view corridor that they originally thought that they were going to have.
I just wanted to quickly go back to your previous comment on the locations of the, I guess, canal and boat basins. And those are set by the master concept plan. So if they want to change them from where they're shown, they would have to amend the master concept plan. So they can choose to build them, but they have to go where they're shown. They don't have to build them if an owner does not want that boat basin, but if he does, that's where it goes. If he wants to move it, they will need to amend the master concept plan. So I just wanted to clarify that for you.
So on the sale of that lot, will the basin have already been dug or not?
No.
It will not have been dug.
Not on the sale of the lot, it'll be dug in compliance with the master concept plan. If after the sale of the lot wishes to put their boat basin in, as shown on the master concept plan, that's the flexibility I'm talking about. Or if two of the lot owners adjacent both move them to the other side, then we'll have to change the master concept plan.
So those boat basins that we see there are hypothetical. If I wanted to buy one of those lots, I don't necessarily have to have a basin.
You do not have to have a basin, but if you want a basin without changing the master concept plan, it's got to go where the master concept plan says it is.
And so then the seawalls that were being required, the thought of putting the seawalls in first, in the case of someone that chooses not to have a basin, they're good. If someone that does want a basin is then going to have to knock down that seawall, if you will, and carve in the basin and put in a seawall inside of the basin now that they've chosen to dig.
Either that or fill in and rebuild a seawall to cover in there. So let's say they build the seawalls up front and they put them all in as the master concept plan calls for. Then if they didn't want one, we have to go back in, build a seawall and fill it in. It's just a lot of extra costs that we have a condition in the city rules that absolutely controls your ability to create seawalls before a building permit. We want to be treated just like all the other single-family lots. And Councilmember, the condition you're referring to about the fence and then a 38-foot high wall, 7.5 foot from the other side of the fence, is the exact same condition faced by every single family lot owner in the city of Cape Coral. Specifically in this, if you look at the master concept plan, most of the adjoining property owners, we face their backyards. There are a few that we're adjacent to side yards, but the vast majority is backyards. And it's the same conditions faced by every single family lot owner in the city of Cape Coral. A 6-foot high fence with up to a 38-foot wall, 7.5 foot from it. We want to be treated like every other single-family zoning lot in the city of Cape Coral.
I would say, that is why we have the condition that we have in there, is the idea of the aesthetic appeal and what the neighbors are going to be seeing when you're just looking at a concrete block wall. Now, there was an option there to just go with a landscape buffer. In this case, the applicant chose to go with the wall instead. So in order to soften it, instead of having that just impeding wall in front of you, make it more attractive, less imposing, that's why we put the condition in there for the neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
Wanted to quickly comment on, I guess, that condition 17. What we're referring to is the subdivision construction permit. So that is an actual permit where they're going to create the infrastructure for the development. So that's your roads. And in this case, it's going to be the central canal in the center of the project. That is considered infrastructure for this project. It's part of their open space requirement. So it's technically like a community amenity, basically. The boat basins, however, don't necessarily have to be dug right away because they are inside private property lines. But you would have an issue on those boat basins that abut the central canal. If they dig the center canal, it may be worthwhile to actually dig those boat basins at the same time. Otherwise, you're going to seawall in front of them. They'll later have to do a cutout to dig their boat basins. But I don't see how you could dig the center canal and not stabilize the shoreline. It's a tidal canal. You're going to have massive amounts of erosion going straight into the spreader canal if it's not stabilized with a seawall, which is the only option that the code allows for tidal water. So,
But isn't that the way many of the canals that were originally dug in our city began, without a seawall? And it was incumbent upon the purchaser of the property to install the seawall after acquisition?
and when the city was created, they, I guess, didn't have the environmental regulations we have today. But the existing shorelines for people who have properties, say I own a single-family lot, it's not seawalled. I buy it, I put a seawall. In this case, this is a subdivision, and they're going to create a new canal, the first new canal in Cape Coral that I know of. And in order to do that, they need to secure that shoreline and prevent erosion. So it's going to need a seawall or some stabilization.
Well, I guess, and the way that the motion has been stated, it's kind of an all or nothing. And so there's a couple component parts here, I guess, that will challenge me to vote yes or no for all or nothing. To hold back the ability to sell the lots until seawalls are in place, I think that puts too much of a restriction on the developer, and I think that the property owners of the homes that what it sounds like are going to be built in here, I think it's a fabulous idea, fabulous community. I don't think they should have any problem being the ones responsible for putting in their seawall on their property with the basin where they want the basin, and make that incumbent upon them to put it in. But to prevent the sale of the properties before a seawall is put in place, I don't go with that. I don't agree with it.
I believe the parcel numbers would be issued with the subdivision development permit. It would only be the recording of the final plat that when you have a subdivision, you need to do all your infrastructure and everything before the final plat is recorded. So that is what the condition is stating. So it would be before the final recording of the plat.
Okay, thanks. I'm interested in what my colleagues have to say.
Councilmember Shepherd.
I just want to say thank you to the developer or builder that's doing this project. This is what we need in our community. I promote raising the value of our community. We're never going to have the amount of commercial needs in the city that we really need, so it's more important that we have as much high-end build-out as possible. And I see this project here being as high-end or even greater than Cape Harbor. And there's houses in there for $8 to $10 million. These are oversized lots. Am I right? These lots are 3 to 4 times the size of an average Cape lot. So I don't see congestion like you're envisioning. I see a lot of green space between the houses. I also feel that when we want to be a magnet to development like this, there has to be some give and take. People that are going to spend $5-6 million on a house, there's things that they're going to want. I can tell you I have a concrete stuccoed 6-foot wall around my whole property, and my neighbors thanked me because now they didn't have to buy a fence. They just had to put fencing on 2 sides, and it's stucco, it's painted, it matches my home. I actually don't like the idea of going in 5 feet because now you're dealing with landscaping that is next to impossible to maintain. And then you have 2 fences, you're creating this alleyway, which is not attractive. So I'm fine with the being right on the property line. I love the fact that they're oversized lots. I love the thinking outside the box with the pull in for the boat. I think that's awesome. I think you're going to sell this project out in no time, and I think it's going to be a tremendous asset to the city. So I'm for moving it along. Thank you.
Councilmember Cosner.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I do have some questions here. And first, I want to say I understand the intent of the motion maker, but I think just removing those conditions altogether might not be what we want to do. I think maybe we want to look at replacing language or something like that. I just want to be careful here with what we do. So we'll get to that point eventually. But about the landscape buffer, is it important to do this in developments like this because it hides the ugly wall? Is that the whole point? No? Then what is the purpose of this landscape buffer?
It's a requirement of a PUD. PUDs are specialized zonings adjacent to regular zonings within the city of Cape Coral. The landscape buffer is to separate those 2 different uses. In this particular case, we have identical single-family uses on both sides of the wall. All we're asking for is the same rights that every other single-family owner has in the city of Cape Coral, to build a wall, a fence. And it's not an ugly wall. It's going to be a decorative concrete wall that is similar to the wall around the U.S. Post Office here on Pine Island Road.
It's ugly. Just saying. Anyway, I understand what you're saying, and I understand why you wouldn't want to do the 5-foot buffer, but I don't know, I'm kind of split on that, so I'll listen to what everyone else has to say. And so for the boathouse situation, do we have anything like this anywhere else in Cape Coral?
No.
Okay, so this is the first time we're doing this, and that's why the bumpy road. Okay, I understand what they're asking for, and I think I can get behind that, and definitely the seawall thing I understand too. I think that's again, I don't think that's happened in Cape Coral before with a development like this.
No.
Right, so again, we're doing first time right now. Okay, so yeah, I would support that. But if we were to remove all 3 or change those conditions, what would you recommend as far as language?
So we would definitely not just delete them. So I think we would want to revise 6A to indicate that you're going to a 0-foot setback for attached boathouses. This is what's currently reflected on the proposed master concept plan, so that wouldn't actually have to change on the master concept plan. It does show 0 setbacks for attached and detached. That was just a staff condition. So we would definitely have to change that particular condition to reflect 0 versus 7.5. As far as condition 16, 15, sorry.
And 17?
Well, I'll go to 17, actually. I think what we would want to see is something more along the lines of an alternative shoreline stabilization in the interim that would have some sort of, to ensure that that canal is protected from the runoff. So, and we could do that by having the Public Works Director approve some sort of alternative in the meantime until said time that the seawalls are put in.
What type of alternative?
Riprap
Okay,
or something of the like that would be acceptable to the Public Works Director.
okay. All right, that's all I have, thank you.
Thank you. I guess I'll jump in here. The, when you're talking about zero lot lines, one of the things that's a little concerning for me, but not too much, is when you have a block wall, 8-inch block wall, the minimum code requirement, unless it's engineered differently, but just the standard construction, you have a 16-inch minimum footer. That's 4 inches on each side of the block. If you're going to build a wall right up to the property line, they're going to be digging in the neighbor's yard for the footer. That's a little bit of a concern, but that's not that big a deal. So I do have a little bit of a concern when you're talking about zero lot lines, just the way I know construction, how you build that product. The seawall, I don't have a problem with the seawall, doing the seawall later, because, you just don't know where you want that. Just like when you build a dock on the back of your house and at a normal residence, you got an envelope to work in, but you can put it in the middle, the left side, the right side. I don't have an issue. I do think that there needs to be some type of verbiage in there, similar to what Ms. Yearsley said, that there has to be some type of stabilization that's approved by Public Works, just for erosion purposes. If you don't, you may have someone come along and improve that lot, put the seawall in, but if you have erosion right next door, it could compromise and undermine the seawall that's right next door that's already been put in. So there has to be some type of stabilization, but I don't think it needs to be a seawall. The 5-foot buffer for the landscaping, I personally believe that's going to be more of an issue than it's really worth, because what you're going to have is you're going to have a person put their fence 5 foot off their property line. The guy behind them that's outside of the PUD can put his fence up to the property line. So now you got this 5-foot void area. It really doesn't make any sense. And I can tell you, I've had 2 projects in the last 6 months where I was using a fence for the safety requirement for a pool, no pool cage. I literally had to put a fence in front of a fence on the property. That's what the building official made me and other builders do. To me, that's ridiculous, because I can take the property right now. I got 12 inches of grass between the 2 fences. How are you going to maintain it? You can't. But that's another story. So I don't have a problem with the 5-foot buffer. I think we should be able to do like you can anywhere else in the city and build up to the property line. I'm struggling a little bit with the attached and detached structure, because we've given the opportunity to the property owner already. If you want to build to a zero property line, you can do that, but it just has to be detached. It can't be attached. So we've already given them that opportunity. Some of the things that I think about is, okay, you get the first 1 or 2 houses being built in there, and then the next person comes along and builds right up to the property line. The person that bought the property may not have known that when they built their property. So I could see that being somewhat of an issue. So that's the only one I'm struggling with. I mean, we've given an opportunity for zero property line build out. It just has to be detached. What's a couple other quick questions? Average lot size. I know looking at you got some corner lots, just as far as depth is really. And the reason I asked this question, and could you reiterate exactly what the boathouse, what that dimension is allowed?
The boat basins have a dimension of 45 by 55. I would say the average acreage of the lots is probably around like 0.6 acres, plus or minus there.
A little over half acre.
Over a half acre, yeah.
Okay. And the other requirement I heard, the 45 by 55 basin, can that whole area be behind the seawall? Is my understanding, correct?
Yes, that whole area,
Can be behind the seawall.
yeah.
So actually you pull in. I know we have a couple grandfather lots here in the city already that have a similar pull-in. It may not be to that dimension, but I would say I know of one that's 35 to 40 foot in depth that you can pull in. So, you know, we already have some of those. The only one I'm really struggling with is the attached and detached boathouses with the 7.5 feet. Aesthetically, when it's attached to the primary residence, it looks like it's a part of the primary residence. So I can understand why staff said, okay, if you're going to attach it, we're going to apply the same rule. But that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not, that's the only one I'm having a little issue. The other two are, to me, simple. Councilmember Hayden?
Thanks, Mayor. You talked about the width of the canal being 105 feet. What's the length of the canal? Do we know that?
Just give me a second to do some quick math. I'll get a ballpark for you here. It's probably close to 600 feet long, maybe a little more.
600 feet?
Yeah.
Do we know what the depth will be?
We don't. I don't think so at this time.
And this connects with the spreader, correct?
Correct.
The depth will be controlled by the Army Corps of Engineers. It'll be the same depth of the other canals.
I was going to say, so obviously this has to be Army Corps
Yes, sir.
permitted.
Yes.
At some point.
It's all
So-
an Army Corps permit. That's still pending.
Okay. And yes, there is going to have to be some way to shore up this canal after it's dug in the meantime,
And
before we
that'll,
get to the seawalls.
that'll also be addressed by the Army Corps permit. There'll be stabilization of some sort to the
Okay.
banks of the canal.
And Joe, you talked about 20 single-family lots, but only 14 basins. What if all 20 property owners want a basin?
Well, the basins are built for 2 boathouses.
They're built for 2?
Yes.
Okay. So does that mean all 20 could have?
Yes.
I'm just trying to understand the math.
Yes.
A little bit more. So
as it showed-
all of them, whether they want, all of them could have.
If they want one that is in line with the master concept plan as presented, they can all have one.
Okay, so they do have to be next to.
Yes, they do have to be next to each other. They would have, like I said, it have to be, 2 property owners would have to agree to move them, and then they would have to change the master concept plan.
Okay.
The only other flexibility is whether you want one or you don't want one.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Mayor.
Councilmember Shepherd?
I just wanted to bring up, in Cape Harbor, they have the funky fish houses. And when I heard that concept, I was like, nobody's gonna buy them. You got 4-story, high-end, tiny houses, I call them, literally right on top of each other. Some of them only like 2 feet apart, or no lot line. But they're selling them for a lot of money, and the people with a lot of money have no problem with the things that we're pointing out. I think we should be concerned with the tax revenue it's going to bring to the city and the magnet it's going to create for our city. I think everything we talked about is really small. I don't think anybody that's going to build a multi-million-dollar house's goal is to make it ugly. I think they're all going to be really high-end, nice homes. I just don't think we should micromanage.
Mr. Mayor, if
Yes,
I
sir.
could correct something that I said earlier, we have 14 basins as shown on the plan, and the basins do cover 2 up to 2 houses, but we have only approved for the 14. We have 7 on appeal with the Lee County Manatee Protection Plan and the Army Corps. So as of right now, as it shows on the plans, the 14 are there. For the additional lots, they're under appeal.
And I just wanted to add one more thing to the people, to the council members that were worried about the wall. In most situations, the wall is because there's an apartment complex on the other side of the wall with a big parking lot and a lot of things that aren't appealing, noise, parking lot, 4-story building, you know, so that's why I think in that situation, we always do it a heavy vegetation. But this is like what they said, it's no different than a regular street in Cape Coral, you know. The only difference is these houses have oversized lots, which will have more aesthetically pleasing landscaping in most cases. Thank you.
Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. I've been sold on the idea of having the wall on the property line. As far as the verbiage, Amy, that you talked about, it would seem like in 17, a real simple switch there could be the shoreline of any new subdivision lot in the RPUD shall be stabilized prior to the approval of subdivision plat. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Changing that to?
Yes.
Okay. And then as it relates to the setbacks on the detached versus attached boathouses, the verbiage right now says they shall have a minimum side and rear setback of 0 feet. That, I think in legalese, and maybe the city attorney can confirm it or not, shall also means must.
Shall means that it must.
Means must.
Yeah.
So the flexibility of where that basin can be placed gets removed by the use of shall. So if we are going to allow a 0 setback, whether it's detached or attached, we got to decide whether it's going to be mandated with a shall or may. Because it may would allow somebody to move it if they wanted to move it. Shall is that's where you got to put it.
We'd also have to get rid of the minimum in there as well. It says
What's
shall,
that?
it says it shall have a minimum side and rear, so you would want to get rid of minimum. So.
Is that it, Councilmember Steinke?
Yes.
All right. Councilmember Long, are you there? I know we haven't let you chime in yet. I got a few other lights on with council members that's already spoken.
I am here, sir. I appreciate the opportunity, but I think there's been some healthy discussion here, and all the questions or input that I was planning on providing has already been done. So thank you.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of questions on my staff. Can you please pull up slide 8 on the presentation?
Oops, there we go.
Can you explain what is going to be around the property that is the last property on the right of Northwest 42nd Place? Is that a wall, a fence? I mean, it's like 7/8 wrap around the property. What are we looking at there? I can't.
I'm grabbing my bigger version. What was the, sorry, Mike, what was the street?
It's the one that's in the top.
On the
when you
top
come in
left
off
or the
of
top right?
42nd Place. You get to the very last property. It's not in the PUD boundary.
That guy does have a wall going around him on 3 sides.
3 or 4?
3.
So what's across the street?
Across the street is a wall as well on part of, well, it's on the part of his view, I guess.
Okay, and then on Northwest 16th Terrace, does the wall or fence come right up to the right-of-way? Not in the backyard of a property?
I think it goes to the property line, on Northwest 16th Terrace, it would go to the property line, but it would be required to meet the visibility requirements above 3 feet, so it would have 75% open mesh in that location.
But in that case, there would be a fence or a wall in the front of the property?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. And that is on 4 different spots in the PUD, each entrance?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure that, for clarity, we're not talking about only, I didn't swear in, but I'm asking these questions we're not talking about just the side yard and backyard. We're talking about fences on city rights of way. Thank you.
Councilmember Welch.
Amy, you were talking about amending, not just removing. I want to make sure that I'm planning on changing my motion to reflect something like that. So you said on 6A, instead of removing, we should be changing it to a 0-foot lot
So-
line for the attached
So
as
we could
being the
just-
condition.
We could absolutely just change it to detached boat houses may have a minimum side and rear setback of 0 feet.
And then also on number 15, you were saying to add a alternate shoreline stabilization, not just removing the.
Correct.
So with those two changes, I would like to ask if the second would be willing to second me on adjusting my motion to reflect those two changes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the applicant has no objections to those changes.
Thank you. Councilmember Cosner.
Thank you, Mayor. So if you please, could you go to slide 3? That one is much easier to look at when we're looking at all the different properties involved. Sorry. There we are. So yeah, if you look at that house on the upper left, that house that is not part of the project, that house is surrounded now by 3, on the left, the right, and the back by walls. And across the street is also a wall. And this is a person that bought in this beautiful neighborhood. And I'm thinking landscape buffer would be fair for people who are completely boxed in by this project. But I understand it doesn't need landscape, I don't think it needs it around the whole thing. So my question is, have we ever done something before where we have landscape buffer only in the areas that abut occupied properties? Because there's a lot of it that just goes along the road, and I don't think that's as important.
I can't answer that question, but what I can tell you is that the person who's living in that house right now is appreciative of the development, supports it, and appreciates the fact he has walls on 3 sides of his house. You have to recognize that as we get within specific footage of the front setback, we drop down to a much lower wall, open, but a fence up above it.
Okay, I was not aware. That actually is good to know.
That's in the regulations, and it's in the documentation.
Is,
And just as the city manager was talking about, those walls or separations or barriers, as they approach the right-of-way, it drops down to 3 foot, and above that is open structure you can see through.
So I'm glad you know about how that gentleman feels, but what about the other houses that are surrounded, not surrounded, at least 2 sides of their properties have this wall? Do we know how?
I can't, all I can tell you is that the applicant has been in communication with all of his neighbors up there for the 4 years of what's going on, and he tells me the vast majority of them are very excited about it, to the impact that 4 of them wish to join this development. and we've included them as part of the application.
Thank you.
All right, no other lights on? Any other discussion? If not, I will,
Restate.
Can we get a restate?
of the motion.
Yeah.
What the motion's gonna be now?
Exact language.
Madam City Clerk?
I'm going to ask for a little help from Amy Yearsley. I have a motion to approve ordinance 50-24 with amendments. I have for 6A to be amended for detached boathouses may have a minimum setback of 0 foot.
And boathouses that are attached, because that's the real issue here, to the primary structure may have a minimum side setback of 0 feet.
Of 0. So it's not the detached, it's the
Yeah,
attached?
detached was the one, already had the 0, so
Okay.
it's the attached that is in question here.
All
So
right.
they would, both detached and attached boathouses may have a minimum setback of 0 feet.
Thank you. And then I believe we're still removing condition 15
Correct.
in its entirety. And then for condition 17, we're including some alternate shoreline. Perfect. Alternative.
I'm going to 17.
The shoreline of any new subdivision lot area shall be stabilized prior to the approval of the subdivision plan.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So,
And if you did want to have that stabilization approved by the Public Works Director as part of that, that's up to you.
I'd recommend it.
Yeah, I would too.
so the motion maker and the second, do you agree?
Yes.
Second, agree?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
All right, Mr. City Attorney?
I'm just
It's your
gonna-
job to get that all together.
I'm just going to clarify on 6A.
Okay.
As you so far have agreed based upon the motion, you are essentially treating detached and attached the same with a 0 setback. I want you all to understand that. Okay. So basically it'll be detached and attached boathouses shall have a minimum side and rear. Or we
May
just
have.
may have. Okay. I just want you to all to understand that. May means it ain't gonna happen.
Might not.
I mean, the reality of it is it's not gonna happen. I just want you all to be aware of that. So I don't want nor to be surprised by that. Okay. That's all.
All right, got a motion and a second on the floor. Madam City Clerk, call the roll.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Aye. Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Costin?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, let's move on to legislative public hearings. First of which was supposed to be ordinance 6424, but we heard that earlier in the meeting. The next one was Resolution 253-24. That particular resolution's been withdrawn from tonight's meeting and will appear at a later date. Next one, we have the ordinance 45-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 45-24, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Cape Coral, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Administration, Article 1, in general, Section 2-1.2, Departments Established, of the City of Cape Coral Code of Ordinances by adding the Department of Emergency Management and Resilience, amending Chapter 8, Fire Prevention and Emergency Management, Article 2, Fire Prevention Code, by deleting the Emergency Management Director designation, amending Chapter 9, Health and Sanitation, Article 4, Hazardous Material Incident Cost Recovery, by deleting the Emergency Management Director designation, providing severability and an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This change is requesting an organizational restructuring within the administration of the city. By creating a department, it requires me to get permission from City Council. in the aftermath of Hurricane Ian, it exposed some of our weaknesses in emergency management, which I'm not going to say were horrible. Our staff did a wonderful job, but the focus that we need to have on the resilience aspect came to light. And so we have some hazardous mitigation grant programs. We have CDBG DR programs. We have some training situations for other departments. And then just the volume of work that is around emergency management and resilience has really started to grow to a point where it was putting a strain on the ability for it to be a division within the fire department. As a result of that, working with the fire chief and the interim fire chief, looking at all of the grant programs that are coming forward, we developed a plan to really set the path for the future of the city of Cape Coral in emergency management. If you look at the size of our city compared to other counties, I believe we're bigger in size than some 20-plus counties that have their own emergency management department division in the county government. So when we really look at what it takes to service a city of this size and the needs of our city, I'm looking to establish the emergency management and resilience department really for the needs that we have now after Ian, but also for where we need to be positioned in the next 20 to 40 to 50 years. Thank you.
Okay, now open up public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 45-24, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing's now closed. Is there a motion regarding ordinance 45-24?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I'll open up for any council discussion. Councilmember Long, wanted to check with you, see if you had any comments.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is something I spoke with the city manager about before. I guess a little bit of discomfort in doing this, given the fact that typically we look to the top 10 cities for a lot of direction and how we operate. And in this case, when I did that, I realized that the ones that operate in a similar fashion to ours with regards to the fire department being under the county, the health department, or having their own emergency services under the fire department, in every respect, each of the top 10 with regards to all but the Port St. Lucie, which I think has a county fire department, each operates in the way that we operate currently. So given that, and also in light of the fact that there's going to need to be a new director to the tune of $200,000+, I'm sure, with regards to an FTE for the position, when we already have a department that operates, in my opinion, very well, causes me some discomfort. I had expressed that to the city manager, and I believe at that point I was told that we are an exception with regards to an interlocal agreement that we have, that the other cities in the top 10 that operate in the same fashion as us don't. I asked for that documentation, and I have yet to receive it. And so for that reason alone, I won't be supporting it. And I just wanted to put that on the record as to my reasoning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Councilmember Carr?
Yeah, just based on that comment, can you clarify that, Mike, a little bit about what he's referring to with the interlocal and the differences there? Just curious what that is referencing.
Yeah, I'm going to let Chief Lamb explain.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Ryan Lamb, Fire Chief and Emergency Management Director. Through our research, the city of Cape Coral is the only city that I've been able to find that has an interlocal agreement with the county. We get a portion of the ad valorem tax from Lee County to provide all hazard services to our city. So while we get a portion of those funding, it also relieves the county of some of those responsibilities. So that's something that we take on that's unique to the city of Cape Coral. So this entire department is funded through that direct and unique revenue source.
So are we the only city within Lee County that has that?
Yes, sir. Not only Lee County, but the state of Florida is the only one I've been able to find as well.
Okay, so they basically defer some of the responsibility back on the city based on the interlocal that we have with them. Did we ask for that interlocal, or did they ask for it?
This was done back in, I believe, the 2000s. It's what funded the initial EOC for the city of Cape Coral. is what's been in
So it was
place.
probably our request to opt out of having full-service EOC.
Yes, sir. I believe at the time it's one of those, the city wanted control, to control the level of service that is provided to the residents of the city versus relying on the county for that critical service.
And not to belabor this, but I do know the city of Fort Myers also took on some of the responsibilities themselves in a similar fashion, maybe not to the extent that Cape Coral does. I don't know that they have an interlocal as you describe. But, I mean, we still function through the Lee EOC. We're not going to be completely independent by creating this department, correct?
Yes, sir. So all of our things that come up through our EOC will end up going through Lee County to the state. We've had lots of conversations. I know the mayor had some direct interactions with the emergency management director for the state of Florida with some issues that we had getting things through Lee County. And so trying to create some avenues to be able to navigate through that. But certainly we operate independently in all other aspects as compared to a lot of other municipalities in Lee County, Fort Myers Beach, Sanibel Estero, where we are a full service city and have those full responsibilities here for utilities, public works, parks, police. A lot of other of those municipalities don't provide all of those services as well.
Okay. City Manager, based on the comment you made about some of the inefficiencies you recognized during the last hurricane with Hurricane Ian, that sways me into supporting this decision. I, along with Councilmember Long, would agree that the interlocal element in and of itself, especially if we requested it, quite frankly, we wanted to take on that responsibility as a city to delineate that. So I think that's on us. And we didn't create this department until now. But I think the reason now is what I'm hearing is based on experience that you've seen as our city manager that you want to correct in this manner. Now, there's probably other ways that it could have been corrected, but you opted to go this route. Am I accurate in that assessment, Mike?
Yeah, and listen, I don't want the existing staff in emergency management to think it was anything that they did wrong. They executed, every one of our staff executed in the best manner possible and what we would have wanted out of emergency management or anybody in the response. What I've observed is more related to the resilience aspect and other things. So for example, in a previous storm, we had some hazard mitigation grants that were awarded for us to strengthen some buildings to be more resilient. We lost some of those because we were unsuccessful in completing them and getting them moved forward. We're having to request money for those same projects again under this event. We have a lot of money that is out there for us to get access to and to administer and pay good focused attention to. Not only that, we have the FEMA issue that's overlaying. To try and burden the fire department with the way that it's growing with the training program and all the new stations, to try and continue to put all of that pressure on one department head, one is just unfair, but two, it's just not a good model for that I see will be successful, and so that's why I'm recommending to do this so that we can be as successful as we need to be. One other thing that I didn't say, but I think might be relevant, is I'm not asking for any new positions to do this. In my budget that I presented yesterday, I discussed that I would be folding in CIP back into Public Works if that's approved for 2025. I'm asking to utilize the existing CIP director position to change it to the EM and Resilience Director. But even saying that, this position comes with its own funding source that even frees up revenues in other areas. So for many reasons, I think this is the best course for our city, and I really think it is going to set us up to be very successful in the years to come.
Thank you for that. Deficiencies is probably not the appropriate word. It didn't mean to have a negative effect, but the fact that you saw elements that we could have performed better in based on a different structure of our organization is the reason you're bringing this forward. Okay, I can support that. Thank you very much.
Seeing no other lights on, we have a motion second on the floor. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long? Shepherd?
Aye.
Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Cosden?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Long? 7 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, we will move on to ordinance 48-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 48-24, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cape Coral, Florida, amending the City of Cape Coral, Florida Code of Ordinances, Chapter 8, Fire Prevention and Emergency Management, Article 2, Fire Prevention Code, by amending Section 8-10, City of Cape Coral Fire Prevention and Protection Code adopted, amendments to fire codes to be consistent with the current edition of the National Fire Codes, and by amending Section 8-11, Request for Hearing Appeal regarding requests for appeals, providing severability and an effective date.
Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mike Russell, Acting Fire Chief. So every 3 years, the state of Florida adopts the National Fire Code. And then the fire department comes before you and asks that you adopt through ordinance the state of Florida Fire Code. So the fire code is what our staff will utilize to ensure that buildings of various occupancies are designed, constructed and occupied in a safe manner. So for example, the fire code would have dictated that those doors have panic hardware and swing outward to allow for rapid egress in emergency, or that we have a fire sprinkler system in this building. So what we're asking tonight is that you, through this ordinance, adopt the state of Florida Fire Code for use with the City of Cape Coral Fire Department employees.
Thank you. I now open up public hearing. Anyone wish to speak on ordinance 48-24, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing's now closed. Is there a motion regarding ordinance 48-24?
Motion to adopt ordinance 48-24.
Second.
Any council discussion? Councilmember Carr.
Just a quick question, hopefully. Is there any significant change to the code that's going to directly affect anything with our development moving today?
Not in our opinion. It's a lot of cleanup, changing how the appeal process works in the city, changing section literally 13.1.1.2.1 to 13.1.2.1.3, right? So there's a lot of just clerical cleanup in there. Legal did have the opportunity to ensure that it complies with all of the other city codes and ordinances.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And I would assume that any permit that's already been pulled up to today, because this goes into effect immediately, is that correct?
I would have to consult with the city attorney office on that.
Mr. City Attorney, this particular ordinance 48-24, does it go into effect upon adoption?
Yes, it does.
So starting tomorrow, this new rule would apply, but any previous permits that have been pulled would still fall under the old code like we normally do, correct?
They would.
Thank you.
Legally, they would.
All right. All right, see no other lights on. We have a motion second on the floor. Please call the roll.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long? Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Costin? Gunter?
Aye.
6 ayes, motion carried.
We move on to ordinance 49-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 49-24, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cape Coral, Florida, amending and adopting the South Cape Downtown Community Redevelopment Plan as attached hereto, providing severability and an effective date.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to staff. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The CRA Board and the CRA Executive Director have gone through a series of sessions amending the CRA Community Redevelopment Plan, and the CRA requests that you approve their redevelopment plan as presented.
And I guess you've spoken to the Executive Director, and he and you agree with him?
Yeah, after I spoke to Commissioner Gunter.
Okay, I'll now open up public hearing. Anyone here to speak on ordinance 49-24, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion regarding ordinance 49-24?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any council discussion? Well, Madam City Clerk?
Yes, Your Honor, I just wanted to announce that we have lost connection with Councilmember Long. If it if he comes back, we'll let you know. So I won't be calling him in the roll.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion, second on the floor. I don't see any discussion. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden.
Aye.
Shepherd. Steinke.
Aye.
Welsh.
Aye.
Carr.
Aye.
Costin.
Aye.
Gunter.
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, move on to Resolution 250-24. Madam City Clerk, please read title.
Resolution 250-24, a resolution of the City of Cape Coral, Florida, relating to the funding of certain water, wastewater, and irrigation utility system distribution facilities through the imposition of non-ad valorem special assessments, providing for the imposition of non-ad valorem special assessments against real property benefited by such facilities, describing the real property subject to assessment, directing the assessment coordinator to prepare a preliminary assessment roll, establishing a public hearing to consider imposition of the proposed assessments, directing the provision of notice in connection therewith, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Mr. Mason, I guess.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, council members, Mark Mason, Financial Services Director. The city has a number of outstanding contribution and aided construction loans that were let many years ago, and periodically we have some of these loans that come up and they become delinquent. Ordinance 5618 was approved by the City Council that would allow us to actually collect these delinquent contribution and aided construction loans via installments on the tax bill. So when these become delinquent and we exhaust all efforts in order to try to collect, we bring forward a resolution to the City Council, which we have done just about almost every year since I got back here with delinquent loans, and we put them on the tax bill. And so in this case, it's one property that has two loans. The total amount to be billed is $2,104, and it'll with this approval, we'll be putting that on the tax bill.
Okay, great. I'll now open up public input. Anyone wishing to speak on Resolution 250-24, please come forward. Seeing none, public input is now closed. Is there a motion regarding Resolution 250-24?
Motion to approve.
Is there any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden.
Aye.
Shepherd. Steinke.
Aye.
Welsh.
Aye.
Carr.
Aye.
Costin.
Aye.
Gunter.
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Move on to Ordinance 51-24. Madam City Clerk, please read title.
Ordinance 51-24, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of commercial paper debt obligations pursuant to the city's commercial paper program, the outstanding aggregate principal amount of which commercial paper debt obligations authorized hereby may not exceed $20 million at any one time, in order to finance costs of various fire capital equipment and improvements within the city as described herein, providing for the use of a direct pay letter of credit from Bank of America, N.A. to pay the principal and purchase price of, redemption premium, if any, and interest on the commercial paper debt obligations, providing for a covenant to budget and appropriate legally available non-ad valorem revenues to pay the principal and purchase price of, redemption premium, if any, and interest on the commercial paper debt obligations, and to satisfy the city's obligations under said letter of credit, providing for the rights of the holders of the commercial paper debt obligations, and providing an effective date.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Mr. Mason again.
Yes, sir. There's three of these ordinances, one consecutively, 1, 2, and 3. So I want to do this preface for basically all three of them, and then I'll speak to each ordinance separately. As a reminder, or as you'll recall, on the City Council on May 1st adopted Ordinance 3124 that amended the Cape Coral Commercial Paper Program by reducing the amount that could be outstanding at any one time from $250 million to $150 million. And that authorized the city then to procure the commercial paper dealer and issuing and paying agent and letter of credit provider. Subsequent to that date, on July 17th, the City Council approved commercial paper program designating the terms as well as the commercial paper dealer, issuing agent, and the letter of credit provider. So the final piece to this is the approval of an ordinance that would then allow us to actually issue the commercial paper for a project or for the purpose that is identified in those ordinances. So the first ordinance tonight on final public hearing is 5124. This is specifically associated with fire, and the project that we could issue commercial paper for is primarily associated with the acquisition, construction, and equipment of various fire and EMS-related capital improvements. That also includes the acquisition of multiple ladder trucks or engines or rescue trucks, as well as the design of any future fire station and training facilities that we have on hand in our plans and specifications on file with the city. And so for us, this would allow us to utilize this to get to the next schedule of a project, and or to utilize this to purchase fire trucks, ladder trucks, or rescue vehicles. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now open up public hearing. Anyone wishes to speak on ordinance 51-24, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion regarding ordinance 51-24?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any council discussion? Councilmember Steinke.
Yeah, just a quick one, Mark, since you're bundling the three together with that preface. The three of them, it looks like they add up to 125 million.
Correct.
And we reduced the 250 down to 150.
Correct.
So does that mean in our commercial paper program, then we've only got 25 million left?
It would mean that if I bring back another ordinance, it would be up to a dollar value. But as a reminder, I could have multiple ordinances that are outstanding up to $300 million. It's having commercial paper outstanding at any one time that doesn't exceed 150 million. So it has to be outstanding. In other words, I've issued $150 million worth, not 125 million or but if I had a number of ordinances that were out there, we would actually manage the program internally to ensure that we would have at no time $150 million outstanding at any one time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other council discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion second on the floor. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Costin? Aye. Gunter?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, move on to ordinance 52-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 52-24, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of commercial paper debt obligations pursuant to the city's commercial paper program. The outstanding aggregate principal amount of which commercial paper debt obligations authorized hereby may not exceed $60 million at any one time, in order to finance the acquisition of certain land as described herein. Providing for the use of a direct pay letter of credit from Bank of America N.A. to pay the principal and purchase price of, redemption premium if any, and interest on the commercial paper debt obligations. Providing for a covenant to budget and appropriate legally available non-ad valorem revenues to pay the principal and purchase price of, redemption premium if any, and interest on the commercial paper debt obligations, and to satisfy the city's obligations under said letter of credit. Providing for the rights of the holders of the commercial paper debt obligations and providing an effective date.
Mr. Mason.
Yes, for this one, again, it is at $60 million. It does, and the project associated with it is for the acquisition of certain parcels of real property for redevelopment. And so in this case, you approved that interlocal tonight with the CRA as well as the purchase of the Bimini East properties. This at $40 million, this we will, we'll have additional funding in order to finance any of the improvements or any other acquisitions in that particular area if necessary to complete for the redevelopment as well as the marketing of that particular property.
Okay, now a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 52-24, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion regarding ordinance 52-24?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. Would I be correct to assume that inside of that 60 million will be monies available to begin the demolition of buildings that are uninhabited, that are in ill repair? That money will come from there as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Carr.
Will it also include the ability to purchase the remaining properties in that area? Is that the intent?
Yes.
Will we have to approve each of those purchases or bulk of those purchases if they come together, or is this the approval now?
No. Well, okay, I don't want to speak for the city attorney, but you'd have a separate resolution to actually buy those properties. So we just have this as the authorization to pay for it.
There'd be a separate resolution approving a purchase and sale agreement for any other properties that may be located within that area.
Okay, but this is the funding source that'll be utilized based on what we believe.
That is correct. This is what was approved, yes. The interlocal agreement.
Thank you.
Seeing no other discussion, we have a motion second on the floor. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden?
Aye.
Shepherd? Aye. Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Costin?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, move on to ordinance 53-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 53-24, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of commercial paper debt obligations pursuant to the city's commercial paper program, the outstanding aggregate principal amount of which commercial paper debt obligations authorized hereby may not exceed $45 million at any one time, in order to finance design costs for a utility expansion program within the North 1 East, North 3, and North 6 assessment areas as described herein. Providing for the use of a direct pay letter of credit from Bank of America N.A. to pay the principal and purchase price of redemption premium, if any, and interest on the commercial paper debt obligations. Providing for a covenant to budget and appropriate legally available non-ad valorem revenues to pay the principal and purchase price of redemption premium, if any, and interest on the commercial paper debt obligations, and to satisfy the city's obligations under said letter of credit. Providing for the rights of the holders of the commercial paper debt obligations and providing an effective date.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mason.
Yes, sir. This ordinance 5324 is the third ordinance authorizing the use of commercial paper. In this one, the project is for the costs related to the design of the utility expansion projects within North 1 East, North 3, and North 6 assessment areas. And the North 1 East, although it's still under design, we also have an outstanding debt associated with that we would take out in December. And then when we come back for the assessment next year, that we would end up refinancing that through and taking out the commercial paper when we actually issue the debt for the assessments. The North 3 is currently underway, and so we would refund what we've spent to date and then utilize that for any future draws associated with payments to the contractors who are doing the design in North 3. And again, we would end up taking it out at the time that we actually issue the assessment debt, closer to about 2027, thereabouts.
Okay, thank you. I now open up public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 53-24, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion regarding ordinance 53-24?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden?
Aye.
Shepherd? Aye. Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Costin?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Item 10C, introductions. Ordinance 54-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 54-24, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral, Florida, Ordinance 22-24, which amended Ordinance 1-24, which amended Ordinance 70-23, which adopted the City of Cape Coral, Florida operating budget, revenues and expenditures, and capital budget for fiscal year 2024 by increasing the total revenues and expenditures by a total of $55,939,470, providing for severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be August 21st, 2024.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, move on to ordinance 58-24. Madam City Clerk, please read title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 58-24, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral, Florida Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 2, Fees, Division 9, Impact Fee Deferral Pilot Program, regarding the Single-Family Impact Fee Deferral Program, providing for severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be August 21st, 2024.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 10C, introductions. I'm sorry, we're done with the introductions. We're moving on to item 11, reports. Councilmember Shepherd, report.
No report.
Councilmember Steinke.
Yes, thank you. On the 25th of July, I participated in the statewide Affordable Housing Advisory Committee dealing with incentive strategies for affordable housing. On the 26th of July, I participated in the Tourist Development Council's Attractions Marketing and Review Committee that I have a member of, and that is it for me.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Welsh.
No report, but I do want to make a statement. The first of this month was a milestone for a business that I own, my wife and I own. It was our 10-year being in business, and I wanted to just thank her publicly and our staff publicly for allowing me to take this role as city council and keep the business running and going. Especially going through COVID when it was shut down and going through this hurricane where we had to go ahead and rebuild, moving from salon to salon until we could get our salon back open. So I just wanted to say congratulations to my wife and our employees at Root Salon. Thank you.
Councilmember Carr, report.
No report.
Councilmember Cosden, report.
No report.
Councilmember Hayden, report.
No report.
Councilmember Long, I guess he's in the win. Okay. Then only thing I have attended the groundbreaking along with several of my colleagues for Festival Park back on 7/26, and this morning participated in Pet of the Month filming and Mayor's Message filming. One thing that I did want to mention, next week I will be out of town for city business. And I know we have 2 meetings that are scheduled. I have asked the city clerk to be excused, but I would like to get authorization from the council. If I can arrange my schedule accordingly, I'll try to participate remotely. So I just want to make sure, if I can make that happen, that I at least have that availability.
And that's the Wednesday morning meetings?
Yes, well, that's something else that we need to talk about. My understanding, the city manager is going to ask about the committee of the whole.
Yes, I was going to be requesting that the city council cancel the committee of the whole on August 14th.
There's apparently no topics to have a discussion, so making a recommendation to cancel that. With that being said, and I've already spoken to the city attorney, we were supposed to have a special meeting on Wednesday prior to or after our meeting.
After the committee of the
After
whole.
our committee of the whole. So my recommendation would be to move the special meeting to Tuesday, the day that we have budget, at 2 p.m. for a 1 o'clock special meeting for the discussion with our city attorney's evaluation. And then at 2 o'clock, we can go right into the budget discussions. So I guess, therefore, we would need probably 2 different motions. One, to cancel the committee of the whole meeting, and then after that, if the council desires to move the special meeting to Tuesday at 1 o'clock, we'll need a motion for that as well. Is that correct, Mr. City Attorney?
That is correct. So the first motion would be to address the committee of the whole meeting.
Yes, yes. So I will entertain a
I'll
motion.
make the motion to cancel the committee of the whole meeting on Wednesday at 9 a.m. on August 14th in council chambers, and including making a motion to move the special meeting.
I think we have to have one motion.
Yeah,
at a
let's-
time.
Want to do one at a time?
Yeah, let's do
Okay.
one at a time.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on that particular motion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hayden?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Costin?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, I'll entertain the second motion.
Second motion would be to move the special meeting to 1 p.m. on Tuesday, August 13th
At 1.
At 1 p.m.
at 1 p.m.
in room 220. Conference room 220.
In conference room 220.
And thereby canceling the special meeting that's scheduled for 11 PM on August 14th.
And canceling the special meeting that was originally scheduled at 11 a.m. on August 14th.
How do you pull those strings? All right,
Told you- I told you I
is there a
was
second
dynamic.
to that motion?
Second.
All right, any council discussion? Councilmember Welsh?
Knowing that a lot of times when we schedule these special meetings, and then we have a gap between the two, would it be better to schedule the meeting for 1:30, knowing that we have the next one starting at 2 o'clock that we can be late for? Or do you believe that the meeting is gonna take a full 1 to 2 time frame?
I certainly hope it won't take longer than an hour. I have no problem with 1:30, with the understanding, from my perspective, you said about 1:30, if it goes beyond the 2 o'clock, we're fine. If we start at 1 and we're done at 1:30, you all have to wait around for 30 minutes.
So my suggestion would be to set the meeting for 1:30 and hope that we get done in a half an hour, because it seems that we've all had discussions, one-on-one. This is just our term, or our time together, to discuss it, within, the sunshine law. So I prefer to set it for 1:30 and hope we can crank through it and then get right to our budget workshop.
Councilmember Steinke?
I was actually concerned in the other direction. In my calendar anyway, I had 2 hours set aside, 11 to 1, there on the 14th, and then it being moved to 1 only gave us 1 o'clock till 2 o'clock. If we push up on that 2 o'clock, whether we start at 1 or we start at 1:30, other than some people being frustrated waiting for us, do we have any legal problems with starting that budget workshop that's set up at 2 o'clock late, like immediately at the end of that meeting?
No legal prohibitions at all.
Okay, and I can appreciate being done in an hour. I don't know that we can done in a half hour. There's 8 of us. 30 divided by 8, how much time will each of us get to share any thoughts?
Okay, Councilmember Cosden?
Thank you, Mayor. I like your idea, Councilmember Welsh, but I worry about going over, and then all the people that want to come to the meeting have to sit and wait for us to take as long as we need to take, and I don't want to rush through it. And I also am anxious about that because it's the second day of school, and I should be teaching at that moment, so it's hard for me to change my schedule, but I think we should do it at 1 and give ourselves a whole hour.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I can understand if it was a couple hours in between, but, if each one of us speaks for 3 or 4 minutes, you're over 30 minutes right there, so. And we've already advertised our budget meeting for 2 o'clock, so I'd prefer to be ready for that 2 o'clock meeting, so I'm okay with the way the motion was already made. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, got a motion and second on the floor, please call the roll.
Hayden?
Aye.
Shepherd?
Aye.
Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Cosden?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Mr. City Attorney, do you have a report?
Yeah, just a brief, considering the time of the hour. In reference to Chiquita Lock, I know some of you have asked me for an update. This is kind of where it stands right now. I am anticipating, or legally they're required to, FDP is required to issue the final order 90 days from the entry of the recommended order. As you all know, there was a corrected recommended order, and that correction was based upon the city's entitlement to attorney's fees against the petitioners. Because that occurred, that ultimately reset the calendar by way of which FDEP is required to issue its final order. So as it stands right now, the deadline by way of which FDEP must issue the final order and respond to all the exemptions asserted by the petitioners is October 1 of the year 2024. I realize that's some days out. Rest assured that we are working with FDEP in order to expeditiously work on getting them to issue their responses to the exceptions, and hopefully we won't have to worry about it being up that deadline, and we'll have it before that. So that is the current status of it right now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We already dealt with the canceling of the committee of the whole. I do want to point out one thing. The City of Cape Coral earns a silver designation for workplace mental health efforts. The City of Cape Coral's Human Resource Department earned the Silver Bell Seal for workplace mental health by Mental Health of America. This award is a testament to our ongoing commitment to our employees' mental health and well-being. So that is something that not only are we doing good externally, but we're also being recognized internally for our efforts related to our employees. And I just wanted to personally thank all of you. Not often, I guess, do city managers get to make statements like this, but prior to today, the biggest day of my career was purchasing the 491 parcels for the city, which included the 7 islands and some other significant properties for the city. With your support, today now makes the single biggest day of my professional career, purchasing the golf course, Bimini South, and approving the town center development. So thank you all. I appreciate your support.
Hey, thank you for all your hard work to make those projects come forward, and your staff. Time and place of future meetings. We have a Cape Coral City Council special meeting that will be held on Tuesday, August 13th, 2024, beginning at 1 p.m. In the conference room 220. And also, that particular day, we have a Cape Coral Council Budget Workshop scheduled for August 13th, 2024, beginning at 2 p.m. here in council chambers. The Committee of the Whole, which was scheduled for Wednesday, August 14th at 9 a.m. in council chambers, has been canceled. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.